Hello, everybody. Today we are going to get into the occult, CIA, Hollywood, and Golden Age shadow government and Mandevillian economics. Um, if you've been following any of my slides, which started with the first slide, it was Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, I believe, was the first. Then there was another one with Tucker Carlson and Dr. Richard Warner. But it was a Dr. Richard Warner particularly. He was an economist. He worked in Japan. This would have been in the 80s. He was kind of the grandfather of quantitative easing. Which is he even says, yeah, the economists have taken my quantitative easing ideas and gone all over the place with that. So anyway, it's funny. The Chinese were very, very interested in his work, and so was the CIA. But the Chinese was, so what they can do about it? But the CIA was pissed off at what he was doing, and the American government. So anyway, that's something worth checking out. If you want to understand the economics, which I keep on explaining, it all comes back to that. Stable economies, then you can produce stable societies. Without stable economies, you really are in perpetual chaos. And that is precisely what governments, the central banks, the international development community. I mean, this gets into the deep state of the international community. And, there's crossover there with the national actors, because these people do reside. They do sleep and eat and live someplace like everybody else. Often they'll have, like Jeffrey Epstein. He had a place in London. He had a place in New York, another one in Palm Beach. And it's precisely these communities, if everybody turns a blind eye to what's going on, then anything goes. It's just like in a family. If the parents are out to lunch or out gallivanting around or too busy in receiving lines and putting on crowns like the royals, then the kids go wild. So, we're really getting into the occult with the Charlie Kirk case. So let's get into the slides. I'm getting better at this sharing stuff and remembering to turn on my, I still have some videos that need to be, I just don't have the technology to edit my videos and stick, I can chop from the front or the back, but not much else. So anyway, that's been okay. But I do what I can with my technology. I have no money. If anybody wants to, instead of criticizing me, send me a present and send me a computer that's, I won't say that works, because this is working, thank you, Lord, but something that's gonna give me better. Okay, so anyway, let's go into first. See, we're going to go into the royals. So right now with the Charlie Kirk assassination, the big question is what happened at Ferry, why were people at Ferry Lake, or TPUSA people, at Ferry Lake in Montana on October 7th. Now, I looked around there, and it was it's the Cargill family. Let's see. So that's Bozeman, Montana is close, so billionaires. So you're looking at Marianne Lieberman, that's Cargill family. So, and Austin Cargill, her brother, lives there. So her husband, that was kind of like, well, obviously her husband's um, Jewish. So I was like, I don't know. There's a website. I'm pretty sure it started by Ian Carroll, and I don't know who else, but it's tips. I said you guys should check on them, see what's going on around there. Dennis Washington. This guy, I don't really think so. I'm pretty sure he voted Democrat. So you can say, yeah, pretty well. That's you can eliminate that. This Brandon McBee, I can't remember. Dennis Washington as well. I thought the most likely person there, because at first I was like, does Tim Mellon live in Montana? Because I know he lives in the Central West, and Tim Mellon is on my radar, should be on everybody's radar. Um, but yeah, I think that's Wyoming, his ranch where he lives. So that wouldn't have been. So we'll see if they look into anything. Um, so what's going on there, because there was Butch Hibbs was there, Brian Harple was there, this Rick Cutter was there. He's part of I think it was part of the security. So everybody was like, well, what was going on? What was there a meeting? 10/7, that's like a month after Charlie is killed. So what happened there? So I assume Candace is checking that out. I also told I think it's called Who Killed Charlie Kirk or something like that. They should look into Congressman Tim Sheehy, because he is, oops, there we go. So he's military, Navy SEAL, ding, 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 ding. I mean, it's not one of those pam pom fire engine moments, but it's a ding ding. So yeah, again, so he's from the Midwest, uh, you know, Navy SEAL, so military. Okay, he's got a book published. See, this is the typical Emma. I mean, I can't for the life of me get my book published on the mommy wars, and I mean, there's various reasons. Um, I mean, part of it, the first reason is, as any of the women who have written on the subject of women on women aggression, um, and viciousness, start out their book saying, I was highly pressured not to write this book. This is the biggest taboo out there. So that's, one of the main reasons. Then the other is, of course, I'm anti-corruption. So nobody wants anti-corruption. Nobody wants to give that a voice. Yeah, so anyway, it's like typical MO. Also, J.D. Vance. I mean, they're putting him forward to be the next presidential candidate for the Republicans. I mean, this kid, he published a book. I mean, really, that's all he's done. I mean, we're just, it's like puppet, Charlie McCarthy, come on down. I remember we had a Charlie McCarthy doll. It had been my mother's doll, I think, when she was growing up. And gosh, I mean, it was pretty much an antique. It was kind of broken a little bit, but I think it had been her doll. Gosh, I'll tell you, people, everything that you want to support, to promote the lifestyle, the values, the morals, everything from A to Z. I mean, that's what my mom was about. So, and it is self-destructive for you and for everyone around you and for this planet. Literally, I mean, of course, my mom is not responsible in and of herself, but you multiply that mentality. I mean, it's Nancy Reagan, it's CZ Guest, it's Cornelia Guest, it's the Kardashians, it's it doesn't matter if it's those like little Queen Elizabeth II, these, prim and proper uh, uh, appearing women who turn a blind eye to really anything and everything. Well, as long as their tea party and their jubilees are going well, then who cares? Um, or those who participate in the gray areas or the really, really sadistic ones, which we're going to start getting into. Yeah, so anyway, of course, he in June 2023, as I say, how old is this kid? When was he born? Born. Okay, he's 40. Um, so he would run Republican, obviously he's a Trump loyalist. So yeah, gosh, yeah, okay. So he was involved in a plane crash. Oh, this wasn't his fault. It was the flight instructor. Poor guy. Oh, and his wife, she's a former Marine Corps officer, and their 4 children. Oh, yeah, I imagine living in that household is kind of like living in a military base. Yeah, see, I mean, yeah, my mother was a fascist Republican, but I mean, my father was a famous doctor. Um, and she was militant, but no, not, my father was live and let live. Oh, such a dear, sweet man. Precisely why I keep on. I'm like, oh, you guys, don't forget the women in there. And they're the ones who castrate the men and produce either these, poor men who are doped up or violent, angry men who are either pressure cookers who sit there in front of their TVs and play golf all weekend, and these frat boys, or the jihadist school shooters. I mean, young and old. This whole the kid, whoever. Okay, so the official story. Let's just put it into the official story of some extremist radical who killed Charlie Kirk for ideological. I mean, that's no different than a school shooting, than the DC sniper with Mildred Muhammad. Now, I really don't think that it was Tyler Robinson who pulled the trigger, but there is obviously that, even if that's not the reality, and it was, you have two things going on there at the same time, because, obviously you want some sort of story. They've done a pretty lousy job. It shows you even the incompetence of this country. We used to be very, when we were under the Puritan worth ethics and values and norms, we were one of the most competent, efficient, hardworking countries of the world. But under these values and norms, we're as incompetent as any third world country out there. And that's why the country's going to crap. And that's why we need to, as my dear father always said, we've been fighting these norms since Elizabeth I. And this goes back to the beginning of the Puritan movement and publication of admonitions to Parliament. It's also known as the Puritan Manifesto. That's 1571 by Thomas Wilcox. Obviously, I mean, I haven't been able to find in the family tree, but obviously of the same family. Even the Wilcoxes that you'll see of different, like instead of an X, you'll see CXS. Those are all, in many of these families, you'll see some variations of the family. But if you go back enough centuries, it's all the same. So anyway, you have him, 1571, and then there's another Thomas Wilcox, Clergy. This is the Puritan movement as well, which is a choice drop of honey from the rock Christ. And that's 1666. In fact, with the occult, in fact, I was like, 1666. So with the occult, like 33, 66, these are important numbers. I'm going to have to get into more. My older sister was really into numerology. Um, but I'm going to have to look into that. But I know those are in all of this numerology, and that gets into the occult. So that's also kind of, I was like, what was it, Kash Patel, who pointed that out? I think it was Trigger Smart, but he said, yeah, we caught the perpetrator under 36 hours, exactly 33. And Trigger Smart was like, well, why would you say under 36 hours, exactly 33? And then he mentioned Valhalla. He said to Charlie Kirk, see you in Valhalla. So that kind of was a kind of ding, ding, ding. What's going on with Kash Patel? Could that? Then Baron Coleman, it was in the Amfest, there was a flag behind Erica Kirk when she's on stage, and it had, I think it was 6x6, 36, and even Baron Coleman, I think he must know something about, I mean, he knows stuff about the Bible, and he's Christian, so I'm sure he knows something about that, but he was like, I wouldn't have 6x6 if I was going to do less. If I was going to change the flag, I wouldn't have that. And I was like, maybe that's so I don't know. There's, it's definitely worth seeing more. And then there's the rings that I pretty much appeared, to my knowledge, after or around the time of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And they really are gaudy. I mean, she says it's the for her children. They're really, really tacky. I mean, God. So it's for some aesthetic. She's not going to do a very good job there. Yeah, so anyway, there's that. Then this is what we're going to try and kind of dive into now. This here, let's look at this. So there was and then there's Gary Melton's. Was I sharing my? Oh, I wasn't sharing the right one. I was showing you Zoom. Sorry about that, people. Okay, so now let's go to Gary Melton. There, we gotta go back here. Okay. Sorry, people. I'll get better. Oops.
What Tyler Robinson was doing after he allegedly murdered Charlie Kirk. Well, that's great, but she's at least known since September 17th. A bit of information that she was given by a very trusted source, and she never shared it with anybody. Let's take a look at this clip.
I have a source, and everything the source has told me that has happened when we were lied to publicly has proven to be correct. So I am very inclined to believe this source on a couple of other things. And when I speak also to Lance's family, they are confirming what this source is telling me. And then we are told, as my source initially told me, that it was the mother who recognized Tyler, and she phones him up. Tyler says, Mom, I'm sick. She doesn't believe it. She loops in Dad. Okay.
So right there, it's worth mentioning that her source back on September 17th, a very reliable source, confirmed that it was the mother that identified Tyler Robinson, and what ultimately led to Tyler Robinson turning himself in with the help of, the law enforcement neighbor. But the question is, what was Tyler doing between the time that he allegedly murdered Charlie Kirk and the time that he turned himself in? Well, let's take a look at this document and this tidbit of information that was provided to her by her trusted source that she never shared with anybody, that is quite frankly a bombshell. I want you to look right here in her own document. So there it is. Our source asserts that he went to buy a new gun. So Tyler Robinson, after he allegedly killed Charlie Kirk, in an effort to cover up his crimes, or at least hide it from his father, he went shopping for a replacement rifle. That's what he did. And that is a bombshell of information. And Candace Owens had that information from a reliable, trusted source, and she never shared it with you. She glanced over that bit of information, never shared it with her audience, not once in that episode. And why do you think that is? I think we all know the reason, and that is because with Candace, this has not been an investigation. It's been about pushing a narrative over the truth every single time. So there you go. Just another one added to the long list of lies that Candace Owens continues to spread, and the fact that she intentionally omits information so that she can push certain narratives, because it's always narrative over truth. Folks, you got to wake up. The evidence that she's lying is right there in front of your face. And she's not going to stop until people start calling her out. And you got to see what she's doing. She is destroying everything that Charlie Kirk stood for, everything that he built, his legacy, attacking his family. And this is much bigger than people realize. This is a political movement ultimately to stop and destroy the MAGA movement, Donald Trump himself. And there are a lot bigger players involved than you realize. So wake up to what's going on, pay attention, and we're going to be right here fighting the lies with the truth. We'll talk to you soon.
I mean, it's just like, okay, first, Gary Melton, I'm like, okay, buddy, you are obsessed with Candace Owens. But I think it's, I think it is partly personal. Just, in terms of, how shall I say, the different factions they're in. He's white male supremacist, and she was a conservative black, how shall ideologist, if you will. So there's already a divide between rhetoric and arms, so let's just say that they're in so many various separate camps on various themes that it's not even funny. So that is personal there. However, he is, obviously a spokesperson for the military industrial complex. He even, and, the deep state, their deep state, he even basically admits so, because he kind of says, yeah, I never wanted to do this in the first place. So obviously kind of somebody said, we need, some propagandists out there, go out there and do it. And, of course you don't come and say, yeah, no, he's got his military and he's got his guns and he's got his themes, but he's there with his how shall I say it, his audience, so that when things come up, then he can be there to inject the narrative of that, of the military and industrial complex agenda. So, yeah, he played his hand. But it's just funny how he's obsessed with her. And then there's this detail about Tyler Robinson going to buy another gun before he's caught by the police. Well, and Aunt Candace knew about this and she didn't put it in. Well, I've never heard that any place, and I don't think that that's something that has borne out to be true. So maybe there's a very good reason that she wouldn't put it in there. But see how he takes this thing that has like, okay, and where's the beef? What's the problem? Okay. And then all of a sudden, Candace Owens is a crazy enemy of the state. So that, I just think, is a good example of how you have these gaslighting people. Then before we get into this occult secrets of feminism, with Rachel, this is Rachel Wilson, I believe it is. Here, let's go into this, because this was just precious. I was like, what's going on here? So David Engelhardt, I forget who David Engelhardt is. Hold on. I think he's on the board. Is he on the board of QPUSA? Hold up. Yeah, I think he was on the board. Yeah, so he's the pastor, and he's a lawyer, and he's a pastor, and yeah, he's TP. I'm positive that's how I came. Yeah, here he is. Yeah, board of directors. Okay, so he's obviously, again, this propagandist. But so we'll start this, but what was really interesting here was, Oh, why is my screen sharing paused? Oh, I can't fast forward on X. Ah, il était une fois. I don't know why they went to Paris for this. Je ne sais pas. Parce qu'il y avait aucune raison. C'est pas vraiment sur la France, ni rien. Et est-ce que ça a quelque chose à voir avec les Macron? J'en sais rien. I was just saying, I don't know why.
I like this shot right here. This is kind of short, so I don't know that we need takes on this. I'm probably clapping in just for the sake of this device. Are we shooting?
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Does it say how many minutes? It does, I believe, say how many minutes on the screen there.
I mean,
how many minutes do we have on that card?
Beauty and the Beast is a
minutes?
French.
Great.
What it's called.
That seems kind of long, but that's all right.
The classic.
My first and last philosophy, that which I believe in with unbroken certainty, I learned in the nursery. I generally learnt it from a nurse. The things I believed most then, the things I believe most now, are the things called fairy tales. G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton wrote that in the book Orthodoxy, in my favorite book, in my favorite chapter, The Ethics of Elfland. And he talks about the things of fairy tales being the most significant, the most important things. What Chesterton is saying here is that the things that persuade the heart of man, the powerful things, those that move men and nations, can be found in the truths of fairy tales. These are the true impulses of the heart. These are the things that matter.
Now that I agree. I mean, I've been, for years.
A boy loves a girl. A hero must stand against a dragon.
And I mean the fairy tales, the tales, the stories that you tell children are extremely important. That's why it's extremely important to be vigilant of what is being produced out there. And they're cutting out classics and they're bringing all sorts of shit in there.
A kingdom must be rescued, beauty preserved. These are all written on the hearts of men and women. They're formed into the stories that we tell our children. They communicate value across culture. We see this in the story of Beauty and the Beast.
Vous n'êtes pas faite pour être une servante. Même le parquet veut devenir votre miroir. Vous ne pouvez plus travailler du matin au soir à servir vos sœurs.
The story of Beauty and the Beast is ancient. Some believe it finds its origin in the Greek tale of Cupid and Psyche. We find a version of the story in China under the title The Fairy Serpent, in Portuguese in The Maiden and the Beast, and in the Italian version, Zelinda and the Monster. The most well-known literary version was rewritten here in France in 1756 by Jean-Marie Le Prince Beaumont, entitled Beauty and the Beast, or in French, La Belle et la Bête. America has always been known as America the Beautiful. In the story of the Beauty and the Beast, there is a moment where the beauty, Belle, is attacked by wolves, an existential threat. The beast is her only chance of rescue. In the same fashion, America the Beautiful is under attack, and America needs a beast. A leader who can take a stand, be struck, and stand again. A leader who may not be the softest spoken person, but can protect the beauty from the real wolves that threaten the very existence of our land. Can America like Bell, look beneath the surface of the beast and recognize his true value.
I mean, I was watching this. I was like, oh my Lord. You talk about propagandists and propaganda?
Should you do, since you're on fire, just do it standing?
I mean, can you see the Eiffel Tower behind me?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a shot I had in my mind.
I
The
always
Eiffel
thought it was
Tower
gonna be
behind me.
Eiffel Tower.
I was like, this is the shot that I was imagining before we got here. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see it. Thank you.
Okay, when you're ready.
Here we are in Paris filming our documentary, The Beauty and the Beast. And this is where the story comes from. This is Paris. This is France.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you don't have to say. I lived in Paris 4 different times. The first time I went, I had had enough of the United States, and I went and I became a jeune fille au pair, and I lived in real squalor. I mean, it was in an expensive neighborhood, but it was a room, a student's room, and you had no restroom. There was a toilet down at the end of the hall, but nothing to wash. So, I mean, I worked for a family, so I could go to use their bathrooms. But anyway, yeah, so as I say, I lived there various times. Then in a student apartment, well, my ex, he had like a student studio. Then we were expats near Parc Monceau, right next to Parc Monceau when my kids were young. So yeah, I've lived there, poor, like student, student, how shall I say it? Student poor, which, you still have money to go out. You're not, you don't really need anything more than any place to just sleep and shower and study. But anyway, so yeah, I've seen it various. So yeah, definitely, I do love Paris. There's always particularly, Parc Monceau. My young sons, they were known. This is the mid 80s, excuse me, the mid 90s. And somebody one time told me, I mean, I think this was in Colombia or I forget where, and they said, oh yeah, oh, the Batman and Robin of Parc Monceau. Everybody knew the Batman and Robin of Parc Monceau. And those were my sons. Every afternoon they were in in school in the morning, like maternelle in the morning. And I mean, I'm a big proponent for that because there were so many, particularly the youngest. I mean, I really pushed because he wanted that, interaction with other children. And, we have so much to do in educational reform. But in fact, the youngest, he was at the Cour at the Mer. Anne Sinclair was there, and it's a long story. He was born in February, and that's how he ended up in 2 different schools. My eldest in the public, and he was in that. But that was very important. But anyway, I digress. But they every day after when I pick them up in the morning, they'd have lunch, they'd have their nap. Or then I guess my eldest. Well, anyway, and then I take him to the park, but they wanted to dress up in their Batman and Robin suits, and so they'd always dress up in their Batman and Robin suits, and they'd go. And I remember my eldest particularly, ven amigo, and they'd be running around. Oh, I missed my son so much. Sorry, but this is what I wanted to play.
Or how to step it out. A prophetic dream is when God is giving you thoughts in your sleep.
Where is this?
So,
The president, barely even friends. Then somebody bends unexpectedly. Just a little change. Lyrics that seem to speak of then the impending political state. Beauty and the Beast. Ever a surprise. a candidate that was a surprise, an election that was a surprise, polls that didn't seem to make sense, bittersweet and strange, finding you can change. And perhaps now the nation learning that perspective one to another could change. 2 months later, I took my boys to the Disney live-action movie Beauty and the Beast, which happened to just come out after President Trump's inauguration.
A tale as old as time is hitting theaters this weekend.
Disney's live-action version of Beauty and the Beast is now playing, and
during a scene of the movie, Belle is being taken through the castle, and they say, "Do not go into this section." And she says, "Where is that?" They say, "That is where the Beast lives, the West Wing." The Beast, who I saw clearly as an analogy of President Trump, lived in the West Wing, which represents the area in the White House where the president does all of his business from. The Beauty and the Beast. America, the beautiful. A land of opportunity, of hope, people come to for a sense of vision, of opportunity, something, the dream that's in their heart, something they love, something they cherish. America has always classically been America, the beautiful. And former President Trump has classically been called the Beast. There's a caricature of him as such, as a beast, as something that's revolting. There's stories written about him in publications as the Beast. But perhaps God in his sovereignty wants to change the perspective of a nation and of a president. Beauty, who saw the Beast as something revolting, would see that his true intention is her defense, her rescue. And the Beast, who saw the Beauty as rebellious and frustrating, would see her true desire, and there would be a transformation of perspective, even as the Beast is attacked from all sides. And through this transformation of perspective and humility that happens on both sides, something beautiful could take place. Perhaps a beast is exactly what America needs. In the story, the wolves start attacking, and when the wolves start attacking, that's when the perspective changes. That's when Beauty's perception of the beast shifts.
That's an existential question. Why would anybody be attacked by power? I mean, when I look at a transaction, speaking for myself, I look at who stands to gain and who stands to lose. And a lot of people stand to lose from Trump enacting his policies. And speaking from experience, not to the extent of Trump, but I've been targeted by the FBI twice.
Breaking news from WPTV News Channel 5.
We begin tonight with breaking news. The FBI has conducted a search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate on Palm Beach over the handling of classified documents.
It's very terrifying, and it's all the more terrifying when you're innocent, when you're falsely accused.
Special counsel's report did not find any evidence that members of the Trump campaign or
James O'Keefe there was nothing to do with the Mar-a-Lago break-in. It was just like, oh, see, yeah, probably going to win a war.
anyone associated with the campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in these hacking operations. In other words, there was no evidence of the Trump campaign collusion with the Russian government's hacking.
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true. At the eye of the storm is Donald Trump.
Really, the thing is it has become a witch hunt. I mean, in this, I'm in agreement, and that's why I'm just like, would you people stop? Because you're just discrediting, you're self-destructing.
Ripping families apart. threatening women's most basic rights. I'm running for Attorney General because I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake.
I wanted to know if you think it's time for Democrats to stop calling Trump a threat to democracy.
No, fact of the matter is that he is a threat to democracy.
No, I think we should be clear that he is a threat to democracy.
Do you think that the rhetoric, though, needs to be toned down?
I think his rhetoric should be toned down, absolutely.
Listen, these are the facts. He is a threat. Period. Point blank.
That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated.
The beast shows up, and he's being attacked at all angles, and it feels very much like today criminal prosecution, where there's civil prosecution, where there's criminal prosecution around the nation, where President Trump is being attacked, and even more than that, as personification of the right, where the conservative ethos and value system is being attacked as personified in Trump.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
You know, it feels like total dread, like all abandon all hope, ye who enter here, like the sign on the gates of hell. That's how it actually feels. That's what I guess that's what hell actually feels like. There's no hope. There's total despair. All bets are off. There's no justice. There's no law, and that's how it feels when you're innocent.
See, to promote fear, it's just incredible.
The beast gets attacked at the end of the whole film, like Gaston almost kills him or whatever, and there's this transformative effect that happens, and it transforms the whole kingdom, and his image, his visage, it changes, and it's like we have this assassination attempt. What do you think happened to the perspective of the nation even through that?
There's no doubt that built into the warp and woof of human nature is the idea that the suffering can ennoble us.
Propaganda, you repeat the message.
That when we see someone suffer, it touches our hearts. But the picture of someone being attacked, it moves us. It happened at 9/11 when this country was attacked.
Yep.
It did something. There was something. I mean, I've written about this actually. That something happens when you see someone who's been attacked and they survive and they walk on with dignity. It's very moving. It's very, very moving. And I think that a lot of people maybe they wanted.
And the government knows that, and that's precisely these. It's not just the message of we can kill you, all of these shootings, these false flags. And it's not only, look at what power we have and somebody has over you, but it is also to then they come in afterwards, the government will come in afterwards and the media will come in with all of these stories of survival and the human will and look at what a great nation we are.
Admit it, but when you saw Trump almost murdered, let's be honest, he should have been murdered. The idea that somehow he wasn't, you can't help but wonder what that was. You can't help but think that looks like that was God. Maybe. I think most people kind of get that. And then to see him stand up.
You know, for them to say makes him look like he's God, and for him to stand up, you have to ask yourselves was that staged? I mean, it certainly is plausible, as Andrew Bustamante. I don't agree with him on many things, but I do agree with him that anything is possible. It's just figuring out what's the probability of it happening.
And say, fight to fight. That's not normal. That's amazing. That was beautiful. I think it moved a lot of people. I think a lot of people, by God's grace, will understand who he is just as a result of that.
The story is a double transformation. The heroine transforms too, as her heart is changed. She gets a realization of what was going to save her by this brute. That's fundamental. And then the brute has a transformation. When you see how this beautiful woman is now relating to him, not as a monster, but as a wonderful creature, seeing the inside. The transformation is on the inside.
I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose, surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over.
See, a speech like this, I'm like, God, is this some freaking speechwriter who's got his head up his ass, or is this Trump? Who, to come out with this, you sit there and go on, well, was this a psyop? Or was this just some asshole speechwriter who's going to make it look like a psyop?
But I could see it. I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight."
And for some reason, God spared him. And Donald Trump has talked about it subsequently. And he's made it clear that, he has been given a rebirth.
This campaign, and then I got shot. How does that happen? But I got lucky. God was with me, I tell you. That's what they call a close call. That was an amazing, horrible thing, amazing thing, and in many ways it changes your attitude, your viewpoint on life. And I think, honestly, you appreciate God even more. I really do, because something happened.
See, they're making Trump into some guy. There's this whole. You have to remember, he was the what was it? The deal, the art of the deal. I mean, they did everything to vilify him, and this hard-headed. This is just like a total PR turnaround.
We were given another opportunity. Well, I think God has given America another opportunity.
To see this propaganda.
It's incumbent upon us to support Donald Trump.
How this propaganda is positioning itself. This is really kind of, regardless of what hand the Trump administration has had, if they're just being opportunists or if they're covering their tracks. Regardless, it's an interesting examination of propaganda at work.
Because we have to turn back this evil. This evil is satanic.
Is evil satanic? Or dreams and vision. Everybody's been laughing at
Historical examples of prophetic dreams are throughout the whole Bible. God is speaking to people around the world, and God is speaking about significant things in the world with prophecy. People are getting visions, people are getting insight, dreams, in prophetic words about what's happening in an election. People are getting revelation about what's happening in economies. I think the reason that's happening is because when we see in the Bible, God spoke more to those higher level of governmental things, and not just, hey, there's a prophetic word that you're going to get a house, but more about what's going to happen in nations, things that he was sovereignly involved in. In the scriptures, there's a story of Paul the Apostle.
Well, I think there's both. This is precisely, let's not deviate attention away from the rights of individuals into some, the rights of nations and public policies at this point.
And he is taken as a prisoner, and he has to go and see Caesar. As he's walking to the boat, and he says, I perceive that we're going to lose all of our lives. We're all going to die. The boat's going to be crushed. This is going to be a horrible voyage. Well, they get on the boat anyways because the captain decides he's going to leave. And then he's on this boat, and it gets wild, and the storm takes off. Then the angel comes to him in the middle of the night as he's praying and says, you and the crew are going to live, but you will lose the boat. Well, was Paul wrong when he first had the first revelation? Paul wasn't wrong. He says, I perceive. But the angel gave him a better knowledge, a better understanding. God sent this angel saying, listen, yeah, you're going to lose the boat, but let me tell you something. Your perception was partly right. Your revelation, let me give you deeper knowledge on this. You're going to lose the boat. You're going to lose the ship. You're going to still stand before Caesar.
So what's the boat we're going to be losing is the question now.
And all these people with you are going to live. Now that is completely different. We would in the modern day go, Paul, you're a false prophet. But that's not true. He was a prophet getting to understand what God was saying.
What's the boat we're supposed to be losing? See, they actually listen to people.
The question is, what is the obligation of the Christian? And I don't mean simply what's the obligation when you're given a picture like this from God? What now must you do? How then shall we live?
I mean, I think the idea of Trump as a Cyrus figure is apt because Cyrus was not one of the people of God. He was outside the people of God, but he was used by God. You see the same thing in Truman. We're talking about President Truman, who he was not a Jew, but he spoke up for the Jews. He was kind of a Cyrus in his day. Trump is like that for the Jews, for standing up heroically, but also standing up for the church. And whether he is a Christian the way some of us are Christians, that's a little bit of a side issue. The fact is, there have been Christians who have not lifted a finger for the church. Trump really somehow innately understands the value of people of faith in this country and has been astonishing in standing up for people of faith. Nobody in 2016 believed he would be that guy. Nobody believed he would talk about appointing 3 Supreme Court justices to overturn Roe versus Wade. George W. Bush wouldn't dream of mentioning that.
Trump is not an ideologue. Trump is about enriching himself, building a dynasty, a powerful dynasty, which I have to understand. Trump is like from the wrong side of the tracks. His father was a middle income, maybe low income, but housing. He built housing. Was it Queens or Brooklyn? But definitely not Manhattan. So he's from this comes into East Palm Beach, West Palm Beach. Trump is from the wrong side of the tracks, and this is the robber barons of New York, and they have really controlled the commercial institutions since the 1800s, and after within the commercial, they have been buying the political institutions. So Trump wants to be bigger and badder than the Morgan, whether Pierpont Morgan or Andrew Mellon, or this is where Tim Mellon comes in with that and why he's supporting Trump. So Trump is about Trump and building this big bad dynasty, the biggest dynasty. J.R. Ewing, etc. It's about power and money and glory for Trump. It's not an ideological battle, and the people around him are maybe in ideological things, but anybody who, that's lower on the totem pole. It's not coming from Trump.
Trump was pretty open about that, and he's been open about that. And so I often say that if you look at Scripture, God often does his best work outside the church through wild figures, whether it's Cyrus or Trump, or all through the Scripture. Why does he pick Rahab? Why does he do that? Well, he does that, I think, to humble the people of God and to say, I don't need you. I will shame you by finding somebody from outside to show you what courage looks like. I think that's the situation with Donald Trump in a nutshell.
But the point is that the story as told by Isaiah is that God does not pick perfect people to do God's will. God's will is God's will, and it may not be what any individual intends.
I am the chosen one.
God is sovereign.
This is where they're justifying all of the violation of rights of everybody in the United States by this God's will, and Trump is the...
And God rules. And I've come to understand and appreciate this to the extent it's humanly possible. Because, it's not necessarily, everybody say, well, God's on our side, we'll win. No, God's on God's side.
Yeah, I think now so more than ever. We were just talking, have we reached the tipping point yet where people just are completely skeptical? I think that many people are skeptical, but there are still a lot of people that believe whatever the authorized knowers, if it's the expert class, the New York Times, powers that be. A lot of people just believe what they're told.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people like that. But there's increasing percentage of people who are skeptical of what they're told. That's a very healthy thing for a republic. It's very healthy, and it's the role of a citizen, it's the role of a journalist to be skeptical. So when people read that headline, oh yeah, it hurts. Well, look at this. James is being investigated by the West FBI. James is being investigated by the FBI. James is being sued 30 times. Like, that alone is reason why you should distrust me. But now it's getting to the point where that alone is why you should trust me.
See, exactly. This is why the Me Too movement was so damaging. It's transformed to the point of now, oh, they went after you, you have a prison, you have a criminal record, oh, that means that you're one of the good guys.
And that's starting to happen. And when that happens, and when my cause succeeds, the timid then join me, for then it costs less to achieve the mission.
Bishop.
I don't want to convey the story wrongly. I'm like, God, please. All right, I'm ready. I had a dream last week that I felt was sent for me from the Lord. It was spanning in the month of November. I remember looking out my window. I have a very big, wide window that I stare at all the time in my
Everybody who's attacking Candace Owens of having dreams.
living room, and it was very dark and very cloudy. And just the feelings of the day were just feeling very dark and just sad and kind of chaotic. And I just didn't know, like the feelings were just all over the place. It wasn't like my normal every day. So I can tell that something was going to happen that day. And it was election day and Kamala Harris won the presidency. And I remember feeling shocked and kind of afraid of what was going to happen next. And I remember praying to the Lord immediately as soon as she won and asking him, you know, what is this? Like, what are you planning for us? Like, what's next? And he just said the words, "You get what you deserve." And it was kind of heart-wrenching when I heard it at first, because I'm like, what does this mean, Lord? And the month spans on, and we start getting like a big influx of migration, like bigger than what we're getting now. And just, you can just tell that the city just can't handle it. The people outside just walking and speeding by, and just like not an easygoing day. It's still very cloudy. It's still very dark. Like the sun seems like it hadn't come out in a few days. And you can just tell like this feeling of the city. It's not like bright and cheery. And then it is announced that Russia has declared war to the United States, and it's the first time ever that we've had war in the country. And, you know, everybody's in chaos, like the news is in chaos. The people, we just don't know what to do. We don't know what to expect. It's, you know, heart-wrenching for me at that point, even more so, because I'm like, God, like, what's going on? It's getting worse. And again, he just says, like, you get what you deserve. And I'm praying and speaking to my husband in this whole like ordeal, and, you know, very scared and just not sure what to do or what to say. And like Texas pulls out and says, like, we don't want to be part of this. And it's kind of, again, like just all these things happening at once in just 1 month and short period. And we just don't know what to do. And again, we're praying and we're asking, and the Lord says, you get what you deserve, you get what you deserve. It's kind of like a looming voice in the whole dream of like, you know, you're getting this because you deserve it. And I keep telling my husband, like, things are getting chaotic, like we need to go. I think that things are getting really bad and it's just only going to get worse. And my husband's like, no, we're going to stick through, we're going to stay, like, it's going to be fine. Things are going to go back to normal. You know, that feeling that we all get where we think like one bad news is going to happen and it's going to be fine. Like, you know, we're the United States of America. Everything's going to be okay.
Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word to them through his messengers again and again, because he had pity on his people and on his dwelling place. I mean, you know, end of the world. But they mocked God's messengers. Oops, despite, well. Yeah, this is just real. La fin. The
second song I sang in the dream was "Joy to the World, the Lord Has Come," and obviously, I don't. It's obvious to me. I don't think that Trump is the Lord. I don't think that's what it refers to. But it can refer to this: that a national leader can make place for God. There's leaders that are anti-God, that are anti-God's way. Just like you can have a leader of a family or a leader of a community, a leader of a business that makes a place for God. One of the things that President Trump said was that when I'm back in office, God is back in America. You may find that offensive. You may say, how dare you say God is back in America? But couldn't it be that a national leader can make a place for God?
And God has now spared my life. It must have been God. Thank you.
Yeah.
Not once, but twice. And there are those that say he did it because Trump is going to turn this state around. He's going to turn this country around. He's going to make America great again. And maybe. And we're going to bring back religion into our country.
That's right. Jesus is king. And I don't think that we've seen...
I believe that A president can make a way for God, can use the bully pulpit to influence the nation, can associate with pastors and leaders that are...
See, again, twice. Okay, is this just really good PR stuff, or is everything connected? I mean, I'm sorry, if you're a good investigator, that's what you're going to be asking yourself right now and looking at everything that's here. This is not, conspiracy theory.
For the fundamental values that Americans are for, which is the freedom to worship, the freedom to choose God. See, the American church has never been about coercion. There's other religious systems that would be happy to coerce you into believing them through force. But Christianity offers you Christ. It doesn't force you to take Christ. And in the same way, we can have a political environment that allows the free trade of idea so the church can loudly and boldly and courageously say, welcome Christ in your life without fear of being sued, without fear of lockdowns, without fear of political action that's designed to offend or limit the power of the church. Look with your natural eyes, look deeper and say, perhaps God is doing something, and it's either now or never. We're not getting back old America, but we can get back something beautiful.
Okay, so really, I don't know why, because it would have cost quite a bit of money for him and a production team to go to Paris to film that. I mean, okay, maybe he took the version. There was one version of Paris. I'm just like, okay, fine, but I'm kind of a lot of money for something that makes no sense. But yeah, that was just like real propaganda stuff there. So I definitely had wanted to just, and this is TPUSA. So this was October 27th when that was posting. Oh, maybe, I don't know. I guess you'll have to watch the entire, it's this Stream Truman. You had to buy it, and I don't have money right now for any of that stuff. So, I mean, got to pay my rent first, and any extra money would go to get a decent computer. So anyway, so that was, I was just like, oh gosh, well, again, how much are they, going around shooting each other and either killing them or not killing each other? That would also, I mean, as I say, I'm just throwing out ideas. I don't think this goes with who Charlie Kirk appeared to be, but maybe Charlie Kirk knew, we had these fake shootings and attempts on Trump's life. We can do it with you. And it's going to help the Republicans. But why would he be saying stuff against the Israel? As I say, you can throw ideas out and then, well, no, that wouldn't work, because why would he do that? Sometimes don't make it too complicated, because the simplest is, I agree, the simplest is usually the normal answer, but that doesn't always mean what you think is simple is what is simple. So let's
saddle on that freaking horse.
I think it's the Stones.
Wild Horses?
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that one.
Drag
Pretty
Me
sure
Away.
it is. It's just 1,000 shitty covers.
Yes, that have done it. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of horse.
The Origin, Patient Zero.
Willie Nelson
Wild
has
Horse.
a few good ones.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your book.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, that's how I get into stuff.
Now,
like it.
Segue.
The
Why they pay you the big bucks.
That's correct.
Oh, yeah.
And they are not.
$24.
It is shockingly a bad deal. No, it's pretty good. I do okay. I can't hang on to money. I'm just a real scumbag. I just don't know,
Donuts. All donuts.
I love donuts. Occult feminism.
Yes.
The secret history of women's liberation.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, what got you into this? What got you into interest in women?
Well, I had a crazy Marxist feminist mother growing up.
Ah.
And
do it.
And then I had a Rush Limbaugh dad.
Really?
Shockingly, they divorced. Who could have seen it coming, right?
That's crazy.
Isn't that weird?
It totally makes sense for Michigan, though.
Yeah.
How they would have met, because you do get the diehard on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew up with these two like opposing worldviews, and then I was like this gifted kid, and I was always put in advanced classes and expected to go to college and have some kind of really important career. And I hated school because I figured out in kindergarten that it was not about being smart, and it was not where you go to become smart. It's where you go to learn how to obey rules and sit still and check all the boxes. Right. So the thought of college was like I just couldn't do it. I had a scholarship and I didn't take it. And
really?
Everybody lost their mind, and I just wanted to like be in the real world and work and do something besides school, at least for a while.
What school did you turn down?
Well, it was actually a full ride art scholarship, which is one of the reasons I turned it down. So I was like, what am I going to do with a fine art scholarship?
I get that.
So,
Painting?
Huh?
Painting? Sculpting?
Yeah, painting. Well, like painting, drawing, just fine arts. Yeah.
Good for you. That's an incredible talent.
Yeah, I was good at art and music and science and a bunch of other fun, boring stuff. But I had a baby when I was 20, which everybody, again, lost their minds and thought was like the end of my life. It's all going to be over. And I thought it was awesome. I loved it. I loved being a mom. I loved having a little adorable baby raise. And like 4 weeks after I had her, it was like, well, you got to go back to work now. Right. Even if your husband makes money and you don't have to, you have to go back to work. And this is like all the Christian conservative women even around me telling me this. And I was like, why? This seems like a really inefficient, totally retarded system.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna
even the Christian
go,
women
like,
around her.
At the time, I'm a hairdresser, right? And I'm supposed to give a crap about cutting people's hair and like pay half of what I make to some random.
Exactly. Like this is how ludicrous it has become. Even, it's, but your career. Wait a second, like, okay, I'm not denigrating people who are hairdressers, but that's not something that you need a PhD for. It's not, it's something that you could, you could even move to a new city and it's this whole thing of, you got to go out and work, but wait a second, I'm doing this and then I'm running around and I got to get up in the morning and it's a whole stress thing. And this is being crazy for the family, and it's not benefiting anybody except for the government coffers with tax.
Random lady to like do what I want to do, which is raise my own child. And I was like, who came up with this? Yeah. So I just noticed like everybody was programmed with, this is how we do it now. This is the way things are, and you'll get used to it, and the baby will get used to it. And I was like, I don't want to get used to it. It seems stupid. So that was like the beginning of me going like, how did...
Yeah, I don't want to get used to it. This is stupid. Why should I get used to it?
We have this system. How do we have this now? Because my grandma didn't do it like that.
Right. Well, so many people, yeah.
Yeah, like all of human history up.
I did a clip. I was like, oh my God, this is Betty Friedan and embarrassed.
Until, 40 years ago, we didn't do it this way. So I just thought it was strange. It was another one of those things where the whole world's telling me this is how it should be. And I'm going, it seems really dumb. I don't know, just me, but it seems dumb. So I started kind of slowly reading feminist literature. I know. I must have like a masochistic side or something.
You gotta know. You gotta learn it.
Yeah, because I was...
Yeah, she definitely has a masochistic side.
Like, well, what was their reasoning? Like, let's find out like what's going on with this. And aside from it being terribly boring and a really awful read, 99% of these feminist writers, going back to even like the 1700s, I'm reading like Mary Wollstonecraft. And I just started to find out that like
it's painful. It is painful.
Gender studies version of feminism that we've all been told, like if you ask the typical person, they'll say, oh yeah, well there was an abusive patriarchy and the women couldn't do anything. And you'll hear crazy stuff like, oh, women couldn't work and they couldn't go to school and they were just chained to a stove, being forced to give birth repeatedly until they died either in childbirth or from hearth death.
That was at my camp I made.
A hardcore camp.
We should maybe bring it back.
We called it the Ranch Davidians. Sorry,
it's
go on.
Probably better than what we're dealing with now. So maybe bring it back.
Probably true, actually.
Try.
I could run a camp.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh buddy. Get those. We got to get these birth rates up, ladies.
I will take on the burden of making love to all your wives. Why? Because I talk to God. I'm the one.
He told me.
Yeah.
Why is it always that?
Anyway, sorry, since I was way off track.
So from reading all this god-awful, boring historical literature, I found out that like their primary complaints, like Susan B. Anthony, for example, in her History of Women's Suffrage, was like, our biggest obstacle was not the men. The men were like, if you want to vote or whatever, like, okay. The women did not want it. The women were staunchly against it. It was like they held a couple referendums in a few states before the passage of the 19th Amendment and let women vote on whether they wanted to vote. Most of them didn't even show up, but the ones who did, only 4% voted to put the 19th like on the ballot, to even have women's suffrage as an option. Okay. So the National Women's Suffrage Association shut down women's voting on women's voting.
You're not allowed.
They were like, no, you don't understand what you're doing. You really don't know what you want. Let us handle it. And I was like,
it has been a mess ever since.
It really has.
But see, this is the great thing. See, I mean, the feminists are more misogynistic than the men ever are. Well, couple.
But I was just like, okay, well, I was always told that, like, you know, we were so abused and our lives were so terrible that one day we all went, oh no, we should fight for rights and like march with signs until, you know, we have rights and then things will be better. So if it wasn't the women demanding it, who was demanding it, right? And then I started, you know, researching the funding and who pushed it and
who was demanding it.
And those sort of things. It was a giant rabbit hole. And I was like, this is really fucked up, because I'm told this is for me, right? I'm told your grandmothers would have, you know, fought and died for your right to go and work a cubicle job. So you get your ass in that cubicle and you send that baby to daycare and you divorce your husband and take half his stuff because that's what your great grandmothers fought for. And I just thought, is this another instance of me being gaslit and lied to? And that's why
it's gaslighting by the feminists.
This never made sense. So I kind of became like an autistic researcher of women's history.
Right.
An autistic researcher of women's history. I'm in that category, I guess.
Over the years, largely to justify like my own life decisions to everyone around me. You know, everybody telling me I needed to be working, I was going to regret it, I need to have my own money, or I'm going to be abused, my husband's going to leave me for someone younger. They fear-mongered me about everything you could think of for not having a career and being like a strong, independent boss woman.
This is the narrative, and this you'll find it at the UN Women. They have completely embraced the feminist movement and their agendas and their ideologies, and they must be stopped.
And you know, I've been called a baby factory because I ended up having 5 kids.
Yeah. Hey, you got one on me.
Yeah? You got 4? Awesome. Good for you. Doing the Lord's work over there. But yeah, it was just like I got so tired of
the thing is you know, this whole thing about, well, like patriot housewife, well, I'm not going to have kids because what about the future? That's not a solution. And I'm producing kids. See, the reason she's given a voice and a book deal is, you know, she wants to go around and give speeches on it. Let's see if she wants to put money where her mouth is and really start going after these feminists and say, we're not taking this shit anymore. I mean, this is tripping the prom queen. This is the issue that Susan Shapiro Barash, you know, basically is if women won't work together, you know, you're not accomplishing anything. And none of the women will work together.
Of defending my choices as not the weird thing, right?
Yeah.
So
traditionally, that was kind of how everybody did it, and they really enjoyed that. Yeah, it is interesting because, like, when you think about it, they got 50% of the working force not in the workforce. So they're like, hey, why don't you get in here and work in this factory?
Yep. Well, that's the thing. So
we tax you too.
Yeah, we could have your money as well.
Turns out you're onto something, and it's not a coincidence that women's suffrage, compulsory education in public schools, the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, and the income tax.
I would have never guessed that.
That's 1912?
Federal Reserve Act. Very important.
All of them were within a few years.
Yeah.
Right around, 1918, 1920.
Yeah. Okay.
All kind of in the same time frame with the same, like, big progressive industrialist funding the whole thing and pushing the whole thing through.
Well, at the same time, they're sending all the males over to die in World War I.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, we need somebody in our factories and do all the things that they were doing. Let's get women in there.
Yep.
Just needed Madonna to play baseball. Oh, yeah. Go on.
Exactly. So yeah, there was a vested interest in pushing women into the workforce, getting them out of the home, putting kids in compulsory public education so that they can be taught the worldview that the state wants. The school system is based on like the Prussian model, which was for making good factory workers and good soldiers. Yep. So it turns out in kindergarten I was onto something that, like, hey, this isn't really to make me the smartest, most critical thinker. This is more to teach me to follow the directions and respond to the bell. When the bell goes off, I have to do this,
Right. Yeah, I felt that in middle school. That's when I guess I started misbehaving or whatever. But it's because anytime I did something that was more independent, or I wrote an opinion instead of what the answer was about why I had this opinion, because I learned something different in history, you know, and then you're getting an F because it's not just by the book.
Right.
All that stuff would really bother me because I didn't understand why it was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
This like boggled my mind. I remember this discussion I had with my ex-husband one time, and he was educated in the French system. I was educated in the American and the British. I mean, I have to say, as much as I criticize Cobham Hall and Foxcroft, and even when I was at school, it was public school in Tucson, but I lived up in the Catalina foothills. This was wealthy neighborhood, very, very, very sparsely populated. So, not difficult to offer good public education when you don't have a big population and the population is wealthy in that, school system. So anyway, I am definitely education reform is what we need to do rather than homeschooling and just being concerned about one's own self.
Probably wasn't wrong, but it wasn't like you're taught the narrative. Right. It has to fit with the narrative.
Sorry, I got distracted for a second. So the thing was, with my ex-husband in his French system, I told him one time, I said, yeah, my teachers at my schools really like me because they'll come out with whatever they got to say, and I'll raise my hand and I'll say, oh, well, I disagree. And then I would give my opinion, what I thought. And they were always glad to have somebody participate because everybody else, they'd be like, well, anybody have anything to say? Let's start a discussion. And nobody would raise their hand. Dumb bimbos. And I'd be like, well, yeah. And, I have always had a very, how shall I say it, different opinion, but as one teacher at Cobham said, oh, yes, we don't often agree with Quenby, but she presents her opinions, her theories with good evidence and good argumentation. We can't argue with her. So anyway, my ex-husband said, oh, God, if I did that in his French schools, he'd be sent to the principal. So this is what's got to be changed.
I got the same thing. It was like I was always in trouble, never for actually doing anything wrong, but for like questioning what a teacher said or correcting a teacher on something when they were wrong. Basically being a smart ass and a pain to the teacher or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how.
See, the thing is I was never a smart ass to the teachers. No,
I got into it, and it turns out there was way more to it than I ever thought. And the reason for the title is two reasons. One is the meaning of the word occult just means hidden. So there's a whole hidden history to women's liberation that nobody knows about. They don't know that there was way higher participation in anti-suffrage groups among women than pro-suffrage groups. And that
occult is a good word. You're writing a book.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's a good. But also, I found as I was profiling all these early feminists that most of them, not a couple, but most of them dabbled in occult practices, whether it's like witchcraft,
seances and stuff.
Yep,
yeah.
spiritualism. There's an old saying that there was never a suffragette that didn't sit around the seance table. And I thought, they never told me about that in history class. That's kind of weird. And it was like there was a lot of anti-Christian sentiment within the suffrage movement. They had like radical lesbian separatist female pastors in like 1895 helping to rewrite the Bible.
I thought you were going to say today.
We have them now too, but people get the impression that this is like really, really new. And it turns out that in 1895, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and all of her like occultist friends were writing the Woman's Bible, which is like they rewrote it from a feminist perspective. And basically, right in the foreword, she says, I don't believe anyone ever, I don't believe God exists. I don't think the Bible is real. But since it's so pervasive and it's the most popular book in the world, we're just going to rewrite it and make it into feminist propaganda. And you can still buy it on Amazon to this day.
It's called the Woman's Bible?
The Woman's Bible. Mm-hmm.
What is the perspective then? Is the whole angle of it, is it fake? Or is it
the whole angle is that men made it up.
Is Mary Magdalene getting drilled?
No, that was later. That was the female professor from Harvard that scammed everybody with her book in the 90s. Yeah.
Was that the Book of Thomas or whatever?
Gospel of Thomas.
Gospel of
yeah.
Thomas.
What is this? Yeah, she turned out to be a fraud.
God has tits and a dick.
So,
I'm not kidding.
Harvard professor, I think it was Harvard Divinity School she was part of, and she claimed to have discovered a lost Gnostic gospel that said Mary Magdalene. This is where everybody gets this Mary Magdalene was a prostitute thing. There was actually a pope a long time ago who floated the idea, but she kind of repopularized it. And there was all kinds of heretical stuff in the book, right? That, the Virgin Mary was not, and all these kinds of things. And it turned out like
the Joseph Smith of that college. I got you.
Yeah. So it turned out that there was no Gospel of Thomas. It was totally fraudulent. She made it up. And, academics at Harvard, had a hearing about this and asked her, like, why would you do this? It's like academic fraud. And she was like, well, I just feel like men made up the Bible anyway. So why can't I just make up a Gnostic gospel if I want to? And that's what the Woman's Bible theory was. It was that Christianity was invented by the evil.
So not just the feminists, but so prevalent today. Well, we think that you made it up, so we're just going to make up ours.
Patriarchy to control women and force them to be, grape slaves. I don't know what words I can say in here, but
you can say rape.
Okay, rape slaves, and control them.
His nickname is rape slave.
Quarter black rape slave. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of what
just
it was.
Just call me Sir Rapes a lot.
Of the branch of the video.
You say whatever you want. Sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah. I just try to add levity every now and then by just saying the most offensive thing possible.
This is like, it's kind of depressing stuff when people find out, they read my book and they'll write me an email and be like, this is horrible, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's...
I like that though. I think that there is so much in history that you're just taught to believe like this was exactly how it was supposed to be, and this is what happened. And we know for sure that we've been lied to about everything.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we be lied to all through history?
Well, I've had people say that, like, oh, I'm supposed to believe that some random lady from the rural Midwest just figured all this out. And I'm like, no, I have like dozens of citations in the book where every source I have is the feminist activists themselves telling you what they believe. It's not my opinion. It's not my like interpretation. Yeah. It's their actual word.
This is like everything that I'm saying. This has come from the feminist academics themselves, the feminists who have written about the problems in family court. I mean, I'm just like Rachel. I'm just citing everything with the academics
that they wrote, and they're very proud of it. You know, like they didn't hide it. Lucifer,
and even like the ABA at universities, all sorts of studies. This is academia is documenting exactly what I'm saying. Yet the feminists are still out there promoting whatever they want.
Was actually a symbol of women's liberation in the 1800s. They openly said Lucifer was the good guy. He was trying to enlighten us and make us free and liberated, and God's actually the bad. And again, Gnostic, occulty.
I can see how they could try and turn all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eve was the one that got listened to him and then got the fruit. Yeah.
Yeah. And even now there's tons of feminists that want to revive like Lilith. You know, if you go to Witch Talk, the hashtag Witch Talk on TikTok, they all are huge fans of like the demon goddess Lilith or
Lilith Fair.
Yep, Lilith Fair in the 90s was So I mean, it's been around forever, and it's just and it's way longer than you think. Like way before women's suffrage, there was this stuff going on. So the book actually starts like in ancient times and works its way through. But yeah, it's nutty stuff. And then the CIA pushed it too, which was totally insane. So there's a whole chapter on like CIA fuckery in pushing feminism.
They're involved with so much.
So much.
I mean, when you really look at,
I mean, it's not the CIA. They pushed all of the different, the hippies culture. As much as the violence amongst the blacks, as the drug addiction. I mean, the CIA has had their hands in everywhere. And this is what we got to break up.
I mean, when you even look at the music movement of the 1960s, how many bands were
Laurel Canyon.
Yes, with Jim Morrison, and you have, I mean, it's incredible how many people.
It was the same stuff. The Congress for Cultural Freedom, a big program, Cold War CIA program, and they, recruited Gloria Steinem out of Smith College and hundreds of magazines around the world that they had control of and really pushed this narrative. So a lot of what people parrot and repeat, like when you hear them say things like, women's right to work, and then I go, okay, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and they go, oh, must be nice to be so privileged. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought that this was a good thing and that I'm liberated if I'm work. Now you're saying I'm privileged if I stay home. Well, like, it can't be both. Yeah. It's like Schrodinger's feminist, right? So
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
You know what is a privilege, though? Hey, I can lean.
That's right.
I don't know if you knew that.
Tell me more.
I will. I know you looked interested. I wanted to help you out there. You're going to think I'm describing weight loss injections, but I'm not. Go ahead. Why don't you point that to QB? Get that here. These remarkable weight loss testimonials came from a doctor-formulated weight loss supplement called Lean. Go ahead. What did Patty S. say?
Okay.
My friend lost 10 pounds with it. He's really happy.
My husband lost a couple pounds.
I want to take Lean home. I want to steal this one because I don't have this. I have this.
Yeah. I'm fit to be tied when I see these lose weight stuff. I'm like, go and look at some people who, are starving to death in this world. Stop eating so much. Stop wasting food. Stop going out to restaurants so much.
Okay.
I was serious. My friend lost 10 pounds with it. He's really happy.
My husband lost a couple pounds.
I want to take Lean home. I want to steal this one because I don't have this. I have the supplements, but I don't have this.
Take it.
I'm going to steal it.
Sipping on some scissor.
Come on.
Of assault. While others report over 20. Still a lot.
My goodness.
However, they did say the benefits package of working for him was incredible.
Well,
now, stick around, really.
First question is, why a lawsuit and why not go to the police when this was happening? Why let it go on for 20 years and then that's always my question. If you're truly being raped and sexually assaulted, why don't you go to the police?
There was an answer in the article.
Okay.
I'll read. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to answer.
It's got to be scary, though. You're going up against this guy, Smokey.
Yeah. You can't
have his tentacles into all the police.
Yeah, you can't take down a legend.
He starts singing?
I mean, he's got casinos to have sell out.
Yeah.
So the woman reportedly refrained from reporting the incident due to fear of retaliation, public shame, and potential impact on their immigration status. Oh, there's also the fact that they come from where they come from. This is just called courting.
They did call for a criminal investigation too. It doesn't matter. They are requesting $50 million.
Should we guess where they're from?
I think we know. They are. They are seeking at least $50 million in damages and have called for a criminal investigation, like you said.
Doesn't have that.
While Robinson has yet to respond to the allegations, he's in show business, therefore probably a monster.
Yeah.
He's 84. Did you say 85? And this was like 2 years ago.
I guess it
up until last year.
Wow.
Up until last year.
2006 to 2024.
He just liked hiring illegals as maids, which is weird. No one's ever done that. But and then assaulting them, allegedly.
maybe he's taking some of those supplements for him to still be that interested.
You said you wouldn't.
in his
say that.
maze.
Let's see the picture again.
Pop it up there.
Oh yeah, the melting wax figure.
Oh goodness.
If you take a good look at his face, you can see his smile's out of place.
He looks like he's had some. He looks like he had work done.
You
know what I mean? Like he got Botox, but then certain things started just dropping.
Didn't take.
Like, I like to look like a Chinaman.
Yeah, they're like, listen,
You said Smokey, you can't say that.
about your face. We goofed.
Our bad, but you can't tell because you can't open your eyes.
Maybe he can sue the plastic surgeons and then
Get the money.
pay for the maid thing with that. I don't know.
Or you can talk to the plastic surgeons, get them to work on the maids, and then maybe everybody will be happy.
That could also not be Smokey Robinson.
That's true.
Like they could just send out that guy and be like, it looks like Smokey Robinson got work done.
He looks like the Madame Tussauds wax version of
Yes,
him.
where like they don't do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
He was at a motel with a woman who would shoot you in the chest.
Stop.
Okay.
Based on like the pose of the statue, I would have thought the title would be more like, "Oh no, you didn't."
Yeah,
I mean,
She's definitely the energy.
Yeah.
Like Z snapping and like frozen in time.
Turn like the hands on the
I
hip.
think they're just chit chat there. So I had wanted to go into, but that goes into her book, and I mean everything that she's saying about feminism. That's totally, you know, is exactly what I found. But this is crazy. Everybody still keeps on promoting it. They're, you know, Candace Owens is one of the people who is out there denouncing it. This Rachel woman is as well. But, you know, if nobody works together and we start attacking some of these women, I mean, they've taken over human resource departments within the labor markets. They need to be denounced there. They need, you know, and this needs to be brought through the courts and jurisprudences demonstrating what they are doing is illegal and that they're creating serious problems. Okay, so we're gonna go to now this last one that, oh man, this is a real doozy.
Right now we are driving to the Chateau d'Amois. We just crossed over into Belgium, so we're out in the middle of nowhere in the Belgium.
So both my children, my sons, were born in Belgium. This is in the early 90s. So I was there when the whole Dutroux, this serial killer, crazy satanic guy, the scandal came out and he was arrested and the whole thing. I mean, I was horrified.
Countryside. This place is absolutely as notorious as they come. Definitely some anxiety in the air as we try to expose these creeps. This is a place a lot of people, I can guarantee, haven't heard of, but I want to raise awareness so that people do know what it is and they understand the very dark possibilities of what may be happening inside its walls. Yeah, 3 minutes away.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, looks like they got this place under lock and key now. So we're right here. The chateau is right over here in this area to our left. The security here is fucking bananas. I mean, dude, this is actually crazy. Look at how thick this forest is here. You cannot see through. So like whatever the fuck is even behind this, I don't even know if the allegations of human hunting parties that happen here are true. I mean, that it would be most likely in this forest area where those kids are being hunted.
And hunting parties, this has been, isn't that like Hunter Games or something on TV? Yeah, that's real.
And murdered.
For decades, rumors have swirled around a castle in Belgium, a castle supposedly inhabited by the darkest forces known to man, forces that could possibly be from beyond our world or our realm of comprehension. Inside of these castle walls, trafficking, parties, murders, games where children are released into the woods and then hunted by adults to be killed, meetings of the Illuminati, dark black magic rituals. All these things are said to happen within the halls of the cursed Chateau d'Amois. In today's episode of the Paranormal Files...
Now, this is similar to and this is attached to the NFL, National Football League. And the Clintons, and this gets into the Pizzagate and, you know, what's his face? Oh, Erica's ex-boyfriend with the pizza on his lip. This is why I'm like, you guys, this is global. This is really global. And, you know, I mean, okay, it's not everybody, but enough of them are involved in this very, very sick satanic worship. And it does involve Hollywood people. We saw that with the Diddy trials. I mean, that's why I kind of like with the Jeffrey Epstein sugar babies. We'll see that in the next slides. But I was like, oh, come on, you guys. Like, that's not, because with the NFL, we even have women who are being impregnated and children who are being bred in order to become sex slaves and be sacrificed, like we're going to be hearing about in here. This is very, very, very sick.
We traveled to Belgium to visit the chateau in person, and we investigated. Oh my god, I get chills thinking about it right now because this one is so fucking dark. Now, from my perspective, and for you guys watching online, when you hear something like this, oh yeah, conspiracy castle where there's parties and with masks and child hunting games and murders and Illuminati, it sounds almost impossible. Like there's no way that could be true, that there could be validity in any of those statements. But we're gonna review some documents today that were released in the wake of an infamous murderer's trial in Belgium. I've covered him already, and we're covering him in an upcoming episode of the Paranormal Files. The man's name was Mark Dutroux, and inside of these sealed documents that were leaked by WikiLeaks is some pretty damning information about the Chateau d'Amouroy, information that really blew the lid off of this story. Now, we're gonna cover some really dark and heavy topics today. I just want to state out right here, I do these episodes because I care about our world, because I hate corruption. I hate government corruption. I've had experiences with it in the past myself, and I just don't think we should allow as a society these sick to keep getting away with this type of shit. That should never be a possibility. But it keeps happening time and time again. And so raising awareness and educating people is my mission that, either I've given myself or been given by a higher power. I don't know why I'm drawn to cover these stories, but in the last couple of weeks, I've seen comments from people saying that I must be myself covering my tracks by doing these stories, which makes no sense. People calling me crazy, saying I'm affiliated with political movements, which I'm not, and I've actually stated in my videos that they're definitely not involved with. So yeah, I don't understand the whole defending thing. It's a very weird thing to do. So if you're those people that are commenting those things and thinking those thoughts, I would step back for a second and think about, who am I sticking up for in this situation? Am I sticking up for Colin, the guy who's exposing sex trafficking and working with victims and advocates and investigative reporters? Or am I sticking up for the that have routinely raped and murdered children for decades that were never caught? I'll let you think on that one. Anyways, this one has some really, really crazy long history, and before we visit the castle in Belgium, we need to do a deep dive. So let's just get started. Today's script and research was brought to you by Sabrin Chandler-Lewis. Sabrin is a great friend of the channel, a close friend of ours, Courtney and I's, and yeah, she's incredible. So show her some love in the chat in the comments, please. Hey everybody, before we hop into this episode, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, Pi. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the Paranormal Files, you know that we produce very long episodes that are filled to the brim with ads. It's what helps keep the show alive. But if you get frustrated with those ads, even when you're shopping on the internet, they just pop up right in the center of what you're trying to episode, you are going to understand why I think that. If you're a dense forest, a beautiful expanse of today's incredibly dark episode. So I initially came across the story, someone tagged me in this, and I watched a YouTube video about it when I was actually on vacation, and immediately when I started learning about this place, I couldn't stop researching. So I ended up going through books, I watched every video I could find about this place, I did independent research, looked through documents, and tried to find as much information as I could about the chateau. But it's very weird, because there really isn't much information about this place. Now, with chateaus or castles in Europe, usually when you Google them and you try to find their history, you will immediately discover, who's lived there, the things that happened there, the dukes and duchesses that called these places home. But when it comes to the Chateau d'Amouroy, it seems that the history online has been heavily censored. In my opinion, that's for a reason. But it is very mysterious. With a place that's so huge and so historic, and it's an old building, usually you're going to find information about it online. But in my opinion, the history and information about the chateau has been purposefully obscured and hidden. And through this episode, you are going to understand why I think that. If you're a dense forest, a beautiful expanse of rolling hills, towering trees, and rushing rivers, a lush, sprawling region, the dense woodlands and deep valleys cover thousands of square miles, reaching through Luxembourg, France, Belgium, and Germany. The thick foliage evokes a feeling of enchantment, while the rivers and streams bring serenity to the soul. It's the mystical beauty of the place that has drawn lovers of nature for many hundreds of years, but history buffs have their fair share of attraction as well. The history of the forest has been recorded since the Roman times, and the area is littered with historic ancient villages. The Ardennes is even mentioned in a 12th century song about Charlemagne, and the rock bear, which resides in the forest, is said to be the very site where the legend of Bayard took place. But the enchanted forest has its fair share of darkness, and contains legends much more sinister than those of the horse that jumped over the river Meuse with one powerful kick. Blood has soaked the grounds of the Ardennes, as it was the setting for the Battle of France, the Battle of the Ardennes, and the horrific Battle of the Bulge. Knowing this already gives the mystique of the forest an eerie light, but there could be something lurking in the trees that carries an even darker lore. In the gloom of the enchanting forest, a massive Gothic structure looms, its spires reaching to the sky with the spindly fingers of skeletons. The castle in question has 365 windows, numerous as the days of the year, and those windows peer out into the forest, watchful and omnipotent.
The traditions that we're talking about here, these go back centuries and centuries and centuries, but this does tie in to the Macron and Candace Owens investigation into the Macron family and what's going on in France, because this is the EU, this is the, because Belgium, you have the French Belgium and you have the Dutch-speaking Belgium. And so we've got a lot of sex trafficking and child trafficking as well, through The Hague, Holland. This is all of this region, and then of course this is right next to Germany. So this entire region, Austria, all of this region has, let's just been shaped by its history.
The castle's powerful exterior may lend an air of beauty to the building, yet within, demons dance to the tune of satanic ritual chants. This place in question is the Chateau d'Amouroy, the Castle of Kings, or as it's colloquially known, the Mothers of Darkness Castle, a structure so foreboding that locals in nearby town refuse to speak its name. Rumors for years have covered the castle, numerous as the stones that built it, and whispers wind their way through the grounds of her guardianship like the wind. These whispers speak of witches, rituals of children, and a global cabal of the elite that secretly runs our world. The rumors speak of the fabled Illuminati and their dark designs that pull the strings of our governments and media like puppets on a stage. They speak of a man who stole children from their families and even ended their lives.
Now, the Marc Dutroux, I mean, I know.
To supply the witches with fodder for their dark machinations. These rumors speak of fire, death, and destruction, creating a lifeblood of one of the darkest conspiracies in our world, one that could shatter the peace we so carefully construct for ourselves, secrets that would plunge us into a worldwide society of chaos. Built originally in 1849 by the Count of Mesnil, Chateau de Amouroy resides deep in the countryside of Belgium, only a 12-minute drive south of the town of Bouillon, requiring passage through restricted roadways. The property was sold to Theodore van der Noot, the 8th Marquess of Ashe, in 1859, then sold again 10 years later to Prince Philippe, Count of Flanders, brother of King Leopold II. These new owners were descended from the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha bloodline, the same bloodline as the current British royal family, and the same bloodline as the infamous Vlad the Impaler. Fire destroyed the original chateau structure in 1873, but
It's a British family that's Gotha and Coburg, Saxe.
Philippe commissioned a replacement from architect Gustave Saint-Anoy, and his work, a massive neo-Gothic structure, still stands today. After the prince died in 1905, his 3 kids inherited the castle, after which they sold it to the liege wood merchant Robert Colette for 7 million Belgian francs. The exact date of the purchase is unknown, but Colette later sold the property once again. Alice Solvay, the niece of Belgian chemist and industrialist Ernest Solvay, purchased the castle, and her family continued its guardianship over 100 years later. The Solvays themselves are an elite family in Belgium, as Ernest and his brother Alfred created a chemical company in 1863, which they named after their family. This company, created to produce sodium carbonate, still operates to this day, and earned $12.4 billion in revenue in 2015, and employs over 30,000 people in 53 countries. Solvay is still in active production today, working on different types of sustainable fuel cells, as well as manufacturing fluorine or fluoride products, such as sodium fluoride, commonly used in drinking water. Now that's a whole conspiracy you can go down.
Yeah, fluoride in drinking water. I'm going to have to look into the Solvay family.
Calcifying the pineal gland, fluoride in our drinking water, and the government's real goals behind that. But we're going to leave that to another day. It is interesting, though, that this family that owns Chateau de Amouroy is in the fluoride business. It's kind of weird. The Solvays also maintained a pharmaceutical branch that developed and sold the SSRI Luvox for the treatment of obsessive-compulsive disorder. However, this branch was sold to Abbott Labs in 2009. As some of the pioneers of Belgium's industrial prosperity, the Solvays were certainly wealthy enough and of enough status to own a chateau of such marvelous construction and history as the Chateau de Amouroy. But it seems that the Solvays were a private group, as very few photos of the outside of the castle are available or even exist, and pictures of the inside are nearly non-existent. There is no video tour. There are no photos of this place. Quite bizarre. Even in Ernest Solvay's time, he was regarded with rumor, as he and his family led very secretive lives. These early rumors of a secretive family living behind stone walls may have spun the locals into telling even darker tales as time has gone on. Or perhaps there is something.
Secretive families, that's the same thing with the Cargill family. All of these secretive families, you're like, which side?
More that made them wary of the property. When it comes to the Chateau de Amouroy, locals are frightened to speak of the place. If coaxed into telling their stories, they'll tell you tales of darkness, of things far more sinister than a family who likes to keep to themselves. Locals talk about tunnels beneath the building, secret chambers hidden within the castle, a room with 1,000 points of light in the ceiling, and a low melody that echoes through the woods on Belgium's darkest nights. Some even mention Egyptian symbols representing the sun on the building, pointing to dark occult worship. But beyond this mystery, haunting tales are shared between locals, tales of witches and satanic worship, and a cabal of the elite that joins with the witches in sacrificial blood magic. But is there any truth to these rumors? And moreover, how could any of this have been revealed, and why wouldn't somebody just go in and put a stop to it? Well, the Chateau de Amouroy was a fixture in Belgium for a very long time, but didn't gain its claim to a disturbing sort of fame until many years after it was built. Some argue that the Solvays, that family, were active in secret societies, with tales of extravagant parties that hosted many influential figures. The rumors of the Solvay family were definitely gossip-worthy, certainly, but they weren't enough to warrant such an insidious reputation. People who approach the Chateau de Amouroy today have noticed a number of extremely bizarre things. The castle is surrounded by tripwires, barbed wire, and a state-of-the-art security system. They have guards that are patrolling the grounds at all times, secret cameras hidden in the trees, tripwires, motion detectors. There's video and photo proof of these things.
Now here it is. It's raining like hell. This is the Mother of Darkness castle. I can't get any further. It's very dangerous here. You see the tripwires here? Look here. Got tripwire. Well, my lens is like condensing. I'm really sorry, but I don't feel like getting any further. They'll only take my camera away and the footage. This is the Ardennes, Battle of Bulge. Yeah, I mean, I'm all wet. And I hope nobody's sneaking up to me because it's got this thing here. That's the Mother of Darkness castle. Evil. Pure evil. I can feel it there. You see, there's the evil castle. And there's a sort of a monastery. This is weird, man. It looks like a door of some armored vehicle. It's really heavy. Very heavy. Thick glass notes. Look, I'm at the wrong side of the fence now. The castle is there. Never mind. Here's the chapel over there. This place is so airy.
No, protected.
Really dodgy. Okay, I'm inside. This is the best shot I can get it.
What the hell are they hiding? We ourselves saw that stuff when we visited the chateau, and it's really crazy. I've been to 1,000 abandoned buildings. I've been to government buildings. I've broken into buildings that were protected. I snuck onto a Royal Air Force compound in 2019 that was half abandoned. Snuck right by military police. They couldn't give less of a shit. This was in England. But the chateau is like the most secure place ever built. It definitely has a very, very eerie, odd vibe when you're out there.
But, I mean, I can't say I'm an expert into going into private property or places where I'm not supposed to be. I'm pretty strict about that. But apparently he is. I'm going to take his word that, yeah, this is like, what's going on here?
You're being watched. It's like Bohemian Grove, and you just know that something isn't right. It feels fucking terrible out there. And it's interesting because though the chateau is a historic building, once owned by a Prince of Belgium, both the National Geographic and the BBC have been denied access to the building by its owners. Yes, National Geographic and the BBC both independently reached out to the owners of the Chateau de Amouroy, wanting to talk about the history and wanting to visit the building and show what it looks like inside, but they were shot down. It's so strange. And the Chateau de Amouroy, also called the Castle of Kings.
It is a little strange because people who have chateaus, most people don't have chateaus anymore because they are too expensive to run. So, you know, they'll find anywhere, like if you have somebody who wants to make a movie or anything, you know, a documentary, they're usually pretty, oh yeah, how much you gonna pay us?
Through all of this conspiracy, has now gained the notorious nickname, the Mothers of Darkness Castle.
The Amera Castle was before the property of the crown in Belgium.
Yeah, the Belgian crown, I'm not, I'll have to look into that family tree.
Leopold. The family Solvay had a castle. I called Thérèse Solvay, I called my auntie, but I was a nephew. And we used to go very often during holidays or weekends in the castle. We used to sleep in beds with big baldaquin.
Like a roof over the bed, like a Middle-aged, like a tent.
Middle-aged, yes, just like a tent. Once we had the opportunity, my brother and I, to see King Baudouin of Belgium, who was in visit there.
So in the castle you found some secret passages?
Yes, but not very secret. We like to go by those passages and stairs.
And how old were you?
I was young, between 10 and 20 years, I think, yes. Yeah. And also, I remember that at Christmas time, Aunt Therese invited one or two children from England, as she was Anglican of religion. She invited poor young children to have a marvelous Christmas time and spend 15 days for Christmas and New Year. And I remember once there was a very little one who was a sort of Cockney, and he spoke very bad English from the streets of London. And another was at the same time, he was Scottish, a little older, 12 maybe, and he was very well educated. And he was sorry because of the little one, and he said, please, shut up. And the Scottish had make a party. He had said, I will a bet. He said at midnight, Christmas time, I will spring and jump and swim in the basin, grand bassin avec jet d'eau. And he made it.
So this book here, you got it. Who gave this to you?
My aunt Thérèse Solvay, gave it to me.
The lady's name is Mason Danny.
Oui, ça c'est mon nom, it's my name.
Yeah, it's about the King Albert.
It was the young time of King Albert, and there is a photo of a picture of Château des Amérois, where young prince spent some time. Albert, first of Belgium.
When was he the king, Albert?
He was king during the 14-18 war, and he was called Le Roi Chevalier.
So here's the castle.
Very popular. The most popular king of Belgium was Albert Ier.
The Mother of Darkness Castle.
He died in an accident in the mountain, à Marche les Dames.
In Belgium?
Yes.
So from your mother's side, you're from the family of Solvay? Yes, I'm sorry, yes, of course. And from your mother's side, you're from French aristocracy.
The mother of my mother was a French aristocrat. Yes.
So we are here very near to the Château des Amérois, and quite amazing, meeting someone who actually slept there. So I thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Danielle.
So before we get into all this, we need to find some evidence, and we need to talk about the Marc Dutroux scandal, because these dark tales wouldn't find their roots until the turn of the 21st century, but they couldn't have found more putrid soil to sprout from. Indeed, the stories of the castle truly took a turn for the unspeakable, once a man named Marc Dutroux entered the public eye in the worst way imaginable. Marc Dutroux, born November 16, 1956, was a career criminal who found his operating grounds on the streets of Belgium. We already did an episode about Marc Dutroux. If you want to do a deep dive into his case, it's already on the Conspiracy Files, and we did a documentary that's coming on my main channel in the next few weeks, where we went to every single Marc Dutroux location, including the site of his house. We had people confront us. It's crazy. Marc Dutroux was a scrap dealer and an unemployed electrician who supplemented his income with thievery, stolen car trading, and drug dealing. Some people believe that Dutroux was also involved in adult prostitution, but these crimes weren't enough for Dutroux as he grew older. You see, Dutroux had a record for being a pervert when it came to women. He would regularly and purposefully bump into women at local ice rinks as an excuse to touch them. This was already creepy enough, but Dutroux also had a wife and children at home. His first wife had divorced him over allegations of in 1983, and he later remarried. But Dutroux simply wasn't satisfied with one woman. According to his second wife, Dutroux would regularly go out and attempt to cheat, but apparently he wasn't meeting enough women on these ventures. Since he wasn't reeling in enough prospects the legal way, Dutroux then took his crimes to a much more disturbing level in the 1980s. He began to kidnap and teenage girls, aided by several accomplices, one of which was his wife. 5 teens, one as young as 15 and one as old as 19, were kidnapped and assaulted before Dutroux was finally caught and arrested. He and his accomplices received jail time. However, Dutroux only received 13 years for his crimes for 5 teenagers, and of that time, he only served 3 years in prison. You see, Marc Dutroux was released by Melchior Wathelet, the Belgian Minister of Justice at the time. This release was granted against the advice from professionals, one the public prosecutor and the other Marc Dutroux's prison psychiatrist. Both of these individuals regarded Dutroux as extremely dangerous, yet apparently the Minister of Justice thought otherwise. And more concerning was the fact that while he was in prison, Marc Dutroux was receiving money from the government of Belgium. You see, he had convinced a healthcare professional that he had a mental illness that caused him to be disabled, and he collected around the equivalent of $3,000 a month in public assistance. Marc then used this money to pay for several properties that he owned in Belgium. Most of these were vacant, and some were even eventually used to and hold his kidnapping victims. But despite somehow having the money for 7 properties, Dutroux's state stipend wasn't reduced. The question could and should be asked how an unemployed electrician and scrap dealer was making enough money to own 7 properties. Yet his funds were never looked into, even though these funds were being used to maintain ownership of the locations used to hold and assault his victims. Most could assume that this high cash flow was due to Marc's drug dealing and stolen car trading. But the truth of this insane cash flow was never revealed. Now, we know that Dutroux got this money from trafficking and children to the elites, but we'll talk about that in a second. While Mark was in prison, he was prescribed sedatives for a fake sleeping disorder that he created, sedatives that he would later use on his victims. After his early release in 1992, Dutroux went a step further into the criminal world. Kidnap and rape weren't evil enough for him. He had to turn to murder. Converting the basement of one of his homes into a dungeon with a hidden door, Dutroux took to the streets, this time targeting even younger victims. And as children began to disappear across Belgium, people began to panic.
This type of thing, the feminists, they haven't cared about this stuff. Type of crap has been going on. They aren't on top of this, and then all of a sudden the Jeffrey Epstein,
From June 1995 to August 1996, 6 girls, 2 as young as 8 years old, were confirmed to have been abducted by Dutroux, though some believe that many, many more children were victims of this evil man. And of the 6 victims, 4 were I definitely think Dutroux had way more victims. I mean, I know that that's true. There's so much proof of it. Dutroux's reign of terror only ended, though, when Belgian police discovered 2 of his victims chained in his basement dungeon. 4 of the girls had already been killed, and these 2 were incredibly lucky to be alive. A proper investigation could have saved more. You see, the house where the victims were being held had already been searched before, after a credible tip was provided that came from Dutroux's own mother. You see, tips had been coming in about Dutroux for months, but the police for some reason never followed up, despite Dutroux already being arrested and convicted on.
Yeah, I remember precisely when this happened. The police went in and no, we heard something behind the walls. We heard him screaming behind the walls, but we just left.
Rape charges only a few years in the past. So many people had called the local police and said Mark Dutroux is abducting and children, and they didn't do anything for some reason, even though he was already convicted of being teenagers just a year or 2 before. And Dutroux's mother actually called in a tip and said, I think my son's doing these things. So the police went to Mark Dutroux's house. While they were in there, they heard the screams of children. The police talked about this. They actually said they were hearing screaming and children, and there was something that they were hearing, and they didn't do anything. The police later on said that they assumed the voices were coming from outside, and they didn't attempt to find the hidden door to the dungeon that concealed them. And because of this failure, the 2 8-year-old victims would later die. That's right, the police were in the house where the girls were being held hostage. They were hearing the girls scream, acting on a tip about Mark Dutroux abducting and children, and they just walked out the door and let those kids die. They should be sentenced to prison. Dutroux was only caught after being positively identified while he was kidnapping someone. He was finally arrested on August 13th, 1996, along with 2 of his accomplices. And as police investigated the horror show Dutroux left behind, they located tapes and the bodies of children buried in his backyard. But moreover, they discovered the body of one of Dutroux's accomplices, a man named Bernard Weinstein, whom he had allegedly killed because he had become a liability and was at risk of being caught by police. Dutroux had been caught, and he would finally be sentenced to serve out the rest of his life in prison. But a botched investigation would set all of Belgium into a frenzy. You see, aside from the police having allowed the deaths of those 2 8-year-old girls by failing to properly investigate, the Belgian police practically protected every other accomplice of Dutroux's that could have been revealed. You see, throughout their investigation, the police found videos, undeveloped film, and photographs of the victims. However, the police failed to examine them. Furthermore, a speculum, a device used to examine the during a pelvic exam, was located in Mark Dutroux's home and was even handled by police, but it was never sent in for forensic analysis. Why? Then the autopsy of one of the victims proved that she had been assaulted for a very long period of time, over and over again. Yet the police claimed there was no DNA evidence, no witness reports, or forensic reports to prove that these assaults were from Dutroux or any of his accomplices. DNA testing was performed, yet no one was informed of the results, not even the prosecutors who would go on to handle the case that would finally shut Dutroux away forever. It was also revealed that the police had failed to follow up on a tip that could have caught more accomplices and saved the young girl's life. One of the 8-year-old girls had been spotted at a nightclub in Charleroi, Belgium, but the police failed to show up at the scene to investigate. This only became more concerning as at the time of the sighting, Mark Dutroux had been arrested for car theft. So that doesn't make sense. Mark Dutroux, at that exact moment, had been arrested for stealing cars, and he was in prison. He was actually serving a sentence. So if his victim was at a Charleroi nightclub during Mark Dutroux's brief stay in prison, then someone else would have had access to Mark's dungeon where the girls were being kept. Mark's wife was apparently left in charge of the girls, yet she later stated she was too afraid to even go near them. Multiple unidentified hairs were found in the dungeon after the home was finally searched. Those hairs were sent to DNA analysis, and these 25 unknown DNA profiles were identified, but they never attempted to match them. So that means you've got 25 whose hairs were found in Mark Dutroux's dungeon, and the police have done the analysis. They can compare these hairs, but they just never did it. And even more disturbingly, a judge lied to one of the case prosecutors about this harrowing fact. Besides all these failures, judges were removed from the case, victim testimonies were thrown out, and one of the victims who came forward about Dutroux was assaulted in the media and called a liar to make her lose credibility in the eyes of the public. With all of this, everyone knew that there had to be something else at hand, something that simply just couldn't be incompetence. Many could see where this was going. It was clear that the Belgian government was protecting someone, or worse, multiple people. It was revealed that Dutroux was supplying children to a ring, and there were accomplices within the business world and the government of Belgium. One of Dutroux's accomplices admitted that the 2 girls, the 2 youngest, were kidnapped on the order of a mysterious third party. But then suddenly this accomplice stopped cooperating with the police because of threats. Pointing further to the fact that Dutroux was acting on orders, it was shown that he owned several houses, and by the end of the investigation, they determined that he was worth 6 million francs. The police didn't follow this trail though, but someone else did, thank God. You see, this is where WikiLeaks comes in. Through a WikiLeaks release, it was learned that large sums of cash were sent to Dutroux's wife's bank account, even including from different currencies than the franc. WikiLeaks even claimed, and you can go verify these, I've looked at the documents, that these currencies and this money arrived right at the same time the girls were abducted. So it seems the transfers in value suggested to some that Mark Dutroux was indeed linked to a ring and that he was the supplier. Dutroux even said so himself. He claimed that he was acting on orders to kidnap the girls. He stated that he personally wasn't a and that he was supplying these children to other people. It was also revealed that Dutroux was aided in some of his kidnappings by the Belgian police themselves. It became the belief of the people of Belgium that Dutroux was supplying these girls to the government of Belgium, as well as to the business elite. This only became more clear when Jean-Michel Nihoul, a business magnate, was pointed to as an organizer for the parties when children would be supplied to some by Dutroux. These parties were not only organized to assault children, however, some also claimed that they were a place for sadism, brutal torture, and even the murder of children. Yes, victims have claimed that they were forced to murder other children at these parties. Victims have claimed that some of these high-ranking people in the Belgian government and business class would pay money for the ability to and then murder a child. They would film this stuff. I mean, it's the sickest, most twisted shit. Yet much of this was completely ignored by the Belgian government. And when witnesses started coming forward to share their stories, they started dying. In true conspiracy fashion, people who had information suddenly began to in mysterious ways. Overall, 20 witnesses directly involved with the Dutroux case died. There's a lot more that had, partial connections to it that died in weird ways as well. And much of this truth was hidden forever. I mean, this shit is crazy. It's in the episode we did, but this would be like someone was like a witness would be driving to the police station to do an interview with the police, and their car would swerve and smash into a wall and they'd die. Or someone was going to testify to the police or whatever the situation was, but they'd be like talking to the authorities the next day, and the night before they would jump off a bridge and be found drowned in the river. 20 people like that. There's explosions, gunshots, murders, self-unalivings, all that stuff. And if 20 witnesses were killed, how many more were threatened into silence? That's a good question to ask. Moreover, Dutroux's wife, the one who received those bank transfers and received that money for the the kidnappings, she was sentenced to prison time as well, but quickly found refuge in a monastery and now lives alongside the nuns who inhabit it. It was clear that something much bigger was going on than just a small gang of sick men. When it was revealed how depraved these men's crimes were and how the government practically protected them and his accomplices, marches were organized across Belgium, one which would be the largest demonstration in Belgian history, with over 300,000 participants. Yes, the Belgian government covered up this story so insanely, and the police, and it just showed that every single person was involved in this thing all the way to the top of the Belgian monarchy and government, that 300,000 people got out on the streets protesting the government for being pedophiles. This case almost led to a full-scale revolution against the Belgian government, and after the events of the investigation, nearly a third of Belgians with a Dutroux surname legally changed it to have no association with the criminal. So eventually, Marc Dutroux was sentenced to life in prison in 2004, and after the trial ended, the case files were sealed and heavily redacted to ensure that no one could ever stumble upon the grisly truth. That's one way governments enact cover-ups.
Does it sound familiar?
They seal files so that nobody can ever look at the truth of what really happened in these cases. WikiLeaks, though, wouldn't let that stand. In 2009, they made sure to publish what they could find for the public to view. But the Belgian government acted quickly. They scrubbed these documents from the internet as fast as they could and ensured that no one could look in on their dirty secrets. They claimed that they removed the documents from the internet because certain people were named who were innocent, but who had been mentioned during the investigation. The government of Belgium said that they didn't want these people facing unjust scrutiny, so they were hiding the documents from the public eye. This only confirmed to people who looked at these documents their suspicions that these perpetrators were sky-high members of society, that the government of Belgium was hiding an elite ring that operated right under the citizens' noses. Moreover, the Belgian X-Files, as they were called, were later released, detailing the accounts of witnesses. All the details of this case made it clear that high amounts of money were involved, as well as blackmail and a sophisticated organization that protected its members. You see, themes of blackmail and rings are extremely common, especially in the Western world. Just look at cover-ups like the Franklin cover-up, Jeffrey Epstein, anybody, J. Edgar Hoover, Roy Cohn, everybody. I mean, these people are all involved in blackmail. It's a political thing. And basically what it entails is people trying to get blackmail on politicians. Like, let's say you set up this ring and your children out. You get a senator super drugged up. You know that he's already got an interest in kids because for some reason politics attract them. And then you say, hey man,
yeah,
we're in this secret room, this secret club. This is a political party. You trust everybody here. Here's an underage that you can go have sex with. Then they videotape and photograph that senator having sex with that child, and when they wake up the next day hungover, the person running that party sends them a photograph on their phone or slips them, an envelope with a printed out photograph of them and says, I own you now. Now you have to do exactly what I tell you to do. That's where the control comes from in the blackmail. But more information comes from the Marc Dutroux scandal that isn't part of the general conspiracy. One that makes it even more evil and depraved than simply a massive ring. In the home of Bernard Weinstein, the accomplice killed by Marc Dutroux, an undated letter was found.
Bernard Weinstein. I mean, the Weinstein family. How can I explain? It doesn't have to be a brother or a cousin. I mean, more than that.
This letter was supposedly sent by someone called Anubis and mentioned gifts for a high priestess. There was even a designation about the age and gender that the presents should be. The reason for these gifts was that a very special ceremony would soon be taking place. This was all written down in the letter. Occult in Charleroi, one of the main locations for Dutroux's crimes, allegedly had a member who used the very same alias.
Although Candace Owens does exonerate Weinstein. So, see? But believe me, I mean, my siblings, I'm like, you guys, this come to, you're for good or evil. There's no gray here.
The cult that this member belonged to was called Abraxas, a satanic sect operating in Belgium. In late 1996, the police followed up on the note and raided their headquarters, the Institute of Abraxas, with 150 police officers. Police took away full bags of papers, video cassettes, and even a whole refrigerator. The news outlet Irish Times even said that the police took away black magic ritual implements and human skulls. The high priestess of the satanic cult, Dominique Kindermans, later spoke to the police and stated that, of course, she had no knowledge of Dutroux nor his accomplice Weinstein. But more kept coming out. An abandoned mine complex was searched nearby in the suburb of Jumet. The authorities believed that abducted children kidnapped by Dutroux were being held inside of this abandoned mining complex. This is because Dutroux had written about this and drawn out diagrams of it before he was arrested. A spokesman was then asked to comment on the link between Abraxas and the mining complex. However, this spokesman refused. And Abraxas is insane. So if you actually dig into this case and you actually do the research on this thing, a lot of people that I've spoken with about Dutroux, when you bring up this Abraxas angle, they want to say, oh, there was nothing definite ever proven there. There was no concrete connection. And I'll say true. There really wasn't anything that was initially discovered, at least to our knowledge, inside of the Abraxas compound, which now that I say that out loud, it's like you got 150 police officers. They obviously thought something was going on there. The Belgian police were already corrupt in this case. So it's like, even if they found, 15 rolls of child, it's not like they would come out and say that. I mean, it's really weird. But there's some really weird things about Abraxas. The main thing that when you talk to people, they say, oh, they were just kind of a scapegoat for Marc Dutroux. But that's, in my mind, untrue. I mean, the letter itself is extremely bizarre. It's written directly to Bernard Weinstein. It's in his house. I think it was the night before or the day before they raid on Abraxas. Witnesses who lived in the area that surrounded their temple, they actually saw members loading a ton of shit out of the building. Like, it looked like they were moving out, they said. There's people that saw this and they testified about it. So it's just, really weird timing. What are the odds that you're going to be moving out a ton of shit? I mean, that's a really weird point. People have mentioned rumors for many years that secret tunnels connect Chateau d'Emeraude to the rest of Belgium. But there's even more compelling evidence that links Marc Dutroux, his massive organization, and the Mothers of Darkness Castle. Many of the Marc Dutroux scandal activities are said to have taken place in castles, named by leaked documents on the Dutroux case. This theory was further pressed forward by the 2001 book, File, Scandal of the Dutroux Affair. In this book, the Chateau d'Emeraude is said to be the site of not only child abuse, but also satanic rituals. Apparently, according to the authors, a report that surfaced from the Dutroux Affair brings a concerning letter to light. It's from a retired gendarme or police officer, and specifically, it mentions this castle. This gendarme apparently hosted a priest from Mexico in early 1996. A friend of the priest, a Dutchman, came to pick him up from the gendarme's home. This Dutchman apparently claimed that the Chateau d'Emeraude was a place where parties, as well as the satanic ritual sacrifice of children, took.
You have to understand that Belgium, Brussels is the head of the European Union government. NATO, I mean, there is a lot of shady stuff that's been brought into that area by the
place. Councilmen, lawyers, and high-ranking judges in the government were all said to have attended orgies organized by the True's organization. And according to the Dutchman who wrote that letter, the one who informed him of this activity was a member of NATO, and he was an American. Apparently, this American participated in one of these rituals and was disgusted by it, and later returned to the U.S. But that wasn't all. Apparently, this priest who the Dutchman came to see was later in contact with the families of the two 8-year-old victims of Mark the True. But more came forward from author and conspiracy theorist Fritz Springmeier. Apparently, the castle is indeed used by and Satanists and small children in a ritual called the Pink Ballet. Now, to put this into perspective real quick, the Belgian
Okay, the Pink Ballet, that needs some investigation.
X-Files. I've read through every single page. There are hundreds of pages, and they're some of the most incredibly disturbing shit I've ever read. They're all essentially summaries of testimony or direct testimony from victims and witnesses of the True's crimes that were, I believe, mostly, if not completely, deemed unusable in court. So they had hundreds and hundreds of pages of testimony of children talking about naming people's names, talking about watching children get I remember one of the things I read was this girl watched these men make another little girl. I don't even know how to say this. She had no clothing on, and apparently they made a dog do things to the girl, and then they allowed the dog to eat the girl from the privates up while she was alive, and they filmed this whole thing, and the men were laughing watching this. We actually visited the place where that was supposed to have happened in our True documentary, but that's just one. There's thousands of things like that these children are claiming happened, and the police completely ignored all of them and said that, yeah, this stuff didn't happen. These are just, we can't confirm that this happened because there's no witness that's going to speak to it other than the witness themselves, which is the child. And so that's why when you get into these X-Files, it's a controversial thing because, it's weird. There isn't like direct physical evidence, but there is a lot of really, really, really direct evidence. Like there's one victim who testified named Regina Loof, and she talked about where that dog thing happened, and she described the interior of this building, said it was made by this corporation. It's got a very distinct interior. She described the furniture, the lighting, everything. It was an industrial building, so a place that a child would never be. She had no family that worked there, anything like that. And when the police brought her there to talk about it, they went into the building and found that it was exactly how she had described it. So stuff like that. There's a ton of corroborating evidence in there, and it's just wild to me that the police just never did anything. They sealed these files so that people would never read them or learn about this stuff. Let's get back to the chateau and the Pink Ballet. I just wanted to explain that so when we talk about the Belgian X-Files, you know what I'm referring to. It's a victim testimony. The Pink Ballet is mentioned quite regularly in the Belgian X-Files. The files were named the X-Files because the witnesses' own identities were redacted in favor of the letter X and a variable associated. So these kids, these victims, instead of using their names in these X-Files, these victims were referred to as X1, X2, X3, X4, and so on. The witnesses state that the Pink Ballet was connected to or supplied by Dutroux and his accomplices. Apparently, video evidence was captured of this event. Videos which included the faces and names of prominent politicians. With confirmation that this ritual exists, could Springmeier have been taking it a step too far by saying it was a satanic ritual where took place? Witness X1 or Regina Loof says otherwise. During the trial, Regina was deemed witness X1 to protect her identity, but later came out into the open. This woman and others described some horrific events that would occur at these gatherings. Loof went to the media in 1998, being interviewed by Panorama, partially sharing her story. According to Regina, she was raised by her grandmother from birth to be used by the massive ring, of which Dutroux was only a small part. Regina was trained in the most
She was bred for this.
Ways, experiencing things that children should not even know exist, let alone be subjected to. Regina stated that she began to be abused by pedophiles within the ring at the age of 3 or 4, and that money was the primary objective. She also said that snuff films were a regular aspect of her life. When she was 10 years old, Regina claimed she became pregnant by
snuff films.
After giving birth.
Assuming from what they're talking, it's when they
to this man's baby, Regina was only allowed to be with her child for a few moments before this group of ripped the baby from her arms, assaulted it, and ripped the baby, then murdered its corpse, all on video while smiling and laughing in front of Regina. And she was 10 years old. She continued on, saying that when children were past the age where they could be bought and sold, they were on film. And those films.
Okay, when she was 10 years old, I mean, she would have gone into. They might also be, giving them hormones so they start menstruation early. I'm not sure.
Films were then sold to clients. Regina stated that she had seen the films herself and that these videos were regularly viewed and played at these parties. At these parties, several children will be provided to groups of She went on to say that those who had been witnesses to them in real life were at the parties and that they gave commentary as the video was playing out, cold and remorseless of their monstrous crime. She stated that while the would be watching these snuff films, she and the other children in attendance were
rendabel was, die niet meer genoeg opbracht of die, laten we zeggen, zo emotioneel eronder doorging dat het kind eigenlijk niet meer voor het netwerk kon gebruikt worden, die belandde in het eindcircuit. Het eindcircuit was het laatste stadium. Daarin werd je vermoord. Dat was eigenlijk de laatste keer waarin dat ze nog geld konden maken van u. Dat was eigenlijk de grootste bedoeling. Zo'n kind die in het eindcircuit terecht kwam, die werd ofwel gebruikt voor daders die zelf de moord wilden doen, maar niet op film wilden staan. Of die door, laten we zeggen, figuranten vermoord werd. Waarvan dat dus degene die de opdracht gegeven had, de film kreeg. Dat waren de twee keuzes die je had als dader. Als slachtoffer had je geen keuze natuurlijk.
Maar die films werden niet in een commercieel circuit.
De films kwamen niet zozeer in een commercieel circuit terecht. De films werden gemaakt in opdracht van 1 persoon. En daar bestonden eigenlijk heel weinig kopies van. Dat was eigenlijk alleen maar 1 film voor die persoon. En dat was alles. De mensen die van het netwerk gebruik maakten, die wilden niet het risico lopen dat eigenlijk zo'n films gecommercialiseerd werden en eventueel konden gelinkt worden ooit aan de opdrachtgevers.
She then gave an account of the murder of 16-year-old Christine Van Hees, a murder linked to both Mark Dutroux and Michelle Newhool, the business magnate. 16-year-old Christine was apparently forced into by Michelle Newhool after being introduced through Mark Dutroux. Regina explained that Christine, the 16-year-old victim, was murdered because she couldn't adapt to the and so she was by Dutroux, Newhool, and others that she refused to name. She then named other girls who were victims and described the levels at which people entered the organization. She said that people didn't immediately enter the ring and take part in the murder. She said that people were introduced slowly over time, and as they became more trustworthy and moved up in the ring, they were pressed into further atrocities. At first, she said, these men would have to engage in a pedophilic with girls bordering a legal age. But then, as the men moved up in the hierarchy...
And I have to admit, you know, bordering legal age, I'm like, okay, 16, 17-year-olds. I mean, girls are losing their virginity, girls and boys. The average age is 17 to lose your virginity. So, you know, the feminists covering up these atrocities and fixating. I've been trying to get the feminists to take cases to the International Criminal Courts for almost 20 years now. I've been canceled. You know, I'm targeted in persecution by all the feminists everywhere I turn because of my work. So, you know, the feminist has the UN report, in-depth study on all forms of violence against women, states, that's 2005, it's women who maintain the violence.
Of the ring, they would take part in bestiality, sadism, torture, and at the highest levels, ritual. But not just anyone could join. They had to be powerful and have good connections that the ring could make use of. Regina said that it was just as much about maintaining contacts with the elite as it was about Regina didn't share everything in her panorama interview, however. In one of her testimonies, Regina talked about something that makes one's blood run cold. At an unnamed castle, children, according to Regina, were forced to...
I mean, you know, I guess there's some that, you know, they just stay with the 16, 17-year-olds. But then others...
stripped naked except for shoes, and were then told to run off into the forest. Behind them, men with dogs waited to chase them. Regina was not a victim of the hunting party in this testimony. She said that she was forced to participate in the hunt. She was told she had to go hunt a child, or that...
I mean, these are hunting parties where they, you know, on a lot of people.
She would be herself. Interestingly, one supposed survivor of satanic ritual discussed something that she experienced, a situation so exactly similar that it could have been at the same event. At a party attended by members of the ruling elite, according to this victim, children would be stripped naked except for tennis shoes and allowed to run into the forest. Behind them, the members of the elite chased them, wearing masks, armed and ready to kill. The children were caught. It mimicked the most dangerous game, the famous story by Richard Connell, where a Russian aristocrat hunts a castaway on an island in the Caribbean. Even in real life, this so-called game was dubbed with this title, even though the victim was not an accomplished big game hunter, but blameless innocent children. The survivor stated that the game would start early in the evening, which Regina Loof also corroborated. This unnamed survivor felt she had no place to run and no place to hide, though, and there were no limits as to what could happen to her at the time. It was one of the most extreme situations she had ever survived, yet somehow she managed to pull through. The fact that satanic cults could exist right now before our very eyes, and the depth of evil, the crimes they were committing.
This is the ultimate survivor.
Seems like something that can only happen in a barbaric era. But was this horrific game also being played at the Chateau d'Amroy? And was it satanic in nature, as the unnamed survivor experienced? There have been reports about the Chateau that these are the games that they play, the most dangerous games, these hunting parties. And obviously that's not something that's going to be written down in history. Regina Loof did have something to say about satanic rituals in her portion of the X-Files. She talked about blood rituals being held at a castle near Eindhoven in the Netherlands, and said that Mark Dutroux was indeed connected to satanic groups. Moreover, multiple witnesses in the X-Files claimed that prominent men in Belgian society were witnesses to and accomplices in satanic rituals at several locations in Europe, some of which included blood magic and sacrifice. But who was this cult, and what was their aim? Well, one of the cults that was named in the files of Dutroux's case, like we mentioned before, was Abraxas. This cult's name has ancient origins, and is known to worship a demon by the same name. This demon is mentioned in an ancient Egyptian invocation, as well as in Judeo-Christian texts. The Basilidians, described by Infernal Dictionary author J. Colin de Plancy as the heretics of the 2nd century, labeled this being as a supreme god. The Catholic Church had labeled this being as a demon, and Plancy stated that the Basilidians attributed Abraxas' rule to 365 skies and 365 virtues. Plancy further states that the Basilidians believed Abraxas sent Jesus Christ to earth, and that Jesus was merely a benevolent ghost. The being is referred to as several different beings, some claiming it's a god, some a demon, and some an archon. What is repetitious in all beliefs, though, is that 365 is a very significant number for this being, as the name in Greek contains the number 365. The same number as the days in the year, the Basilidians believed that Abraxas had another 364 gods at his disposal. Interestingly, the Chateau d'Amroy has exactly 365 windows. Abraxas, in ancient amulets, is depicted as a being with the head of a king and a serpent, or two serpents for feet. In the amulets, a word is spelled, possibly related to abracadabra, the ancient ritual incantation meant to ward off illness, misfortune, or harm. Above his head, he holds a whip. This connection was discovered in the note to Weinstein sent by an anonymous member of a modern-day Abraxas cult. Dutroux received aid in kidnapping children for the ring he was employed by, apparently from police who were also wrapped up in his scrap dealing and car theft. Interestingly enough, the publication Der Spiegel announced that 4 Belgian police officers were discovered to be Abraxas members, with one serving as the cult's treasurer. One of the witnesses to the cult implicated Prince Alexander de Merode of Belgium in a black mass where children were babies were, and sacrifices of both animals and adults took place. Apparently, the murder in this ritual were men in black hoods. Prince Alexander is again implicated by witness X2 as being part of the child hunts that Regina Loof described, though these occurred at Chimay Castle. Satanic feasts are also mentioned, as well as a ritual where an infant and sheep and their blood combined while it takes place. If this weren't enough, apparently, according to these files,
yeah. See, these are the royal families in Europe and aristocracy. That doesn't mean that everybody's involved, but it's going on.
Children were forced to eat human flesh and were branded with hot irons. It doesn't seem that any sane being could preside over such horrors, but according to some, those who preside over the rituals were once victims themselves. The Chateau d'Amroy is better known by English speakers as the Mothers of Darkness Castle, and this name comes from the supposed witches who allegedly performed dark magic within its halls. Called the Mothers of Darkness or High Priestesses, it's claimed that these satanic witches were ordained from birth, having descended from old satanic families. Rumors abound that the powerful elite have been part of satanic families for generations, with some even saying that Queen Elizabeth, the same bloodline as the former Saxe-Coburg owners, is also descended from Satanists. The Mothers of Darkness.
Well, now this is the Saxe-Coburg family. One of their descendants lives in Covington, Louisiana. His mother she was married to the heir. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Had him, then got divorced and married this American, GI after World War II and moved to Louisiana. So
the witches of the Chateau d'Amroy are said
I think it's an uncle, like half uncle or something, is now the heir to the Saxe-Coburg family.
to have been the subjects of satanic rituals from an extremely early age. These rituals are alleged to contain physical, sexual, and mental abuse. This abuse results in a dissociative disorder that allows children to be programmable, so that as they grow older, they will willingly participate and even perpetrate the abuse of children. This dissociative disorder is typically multiple personality disorder, now known as dissociative identity disorder. This abuse that these children suffer at a young age fractures their minds early on due to the continuous trauma. In dissociative identity disorder, the victim's personality becomes incredibly warped as a way to deal with the extreme suffering they faced as children. Because they were trained to live with the trauma, they become accustomed to it, and they're groomed to take part in it. The result of mental trauma is well documented, with sexual abuse survivor Paul Benassi famed for speaking out against the Franklin Credit Union ring, suffering from the same disorder.
The whole that's not child abuse. I'm like, yeah, it is. This whole see and be seen and not heard added towards children. I mean, one time somebody told me, oh, the French are worse. Children should not be seen nor heard. Yeah, it is abusive.
Claiming that he too was abused as a child in order to be programmed. But back to the witches of the chateau. According to people who've researched this matter, when these women, the mothers of darkness, have reached adulthood, they're finally able to continue the cycle of violence that dominated their whole lives as children. Now that these women are adults and hardwired to accept the trauma, they perform these horrific rituals at the behest of the elite, doing their bidding regardless of the cost. Now, where does all this information come from? I mean, it seems like we're just pulling this from thin air, right? Well, Regina Louf can be cited as a source of evidence in this case. She stated in one of her witness testimonies that she was forced to participate in the abuse as she got older, already having been programmed to accept the abuse from her earliest days. From a young age, Regina was programmed to accept the traumas of her life, even apparently forced to at some points. If Regina could be trained to, perhaps these women of the Chateau d'Amroy could be trained to do even worse. Something eerie about the chateau and the mothers of darkness as well is, apparently according to some people and some stuff that I've read, these women are never allowed to leave the walls of the castle. So that would mean that these witches, these satanic witches, are inside the Chateau d'Amroy at all times. They don't come outside, maybe every once in a while at night to do these rituals, but they're held there and confined there and broken and until they become these contorted human demons. So that was eerie when we visited the chateau, thinking there could be these people in there. But why in Belgium? Why would all these horrible things be happening there? And why would a satanic cult be hiding in the Chateau d'Amroy? Well, Brussels hosts the Council of the European Union, as well as serving as a hub for NATO, just as a NATO member was mentioned in the witness statements about the chateau. Because of these major organizations being concentrated here, some believe that Belgium is a concentration point for the New World Order. Many rich and powerful people make stops in Belgium, all well connected and useful for cults such as Abraxas. Perhaps because these connected people meet here, Abraxas uses it as a poaching ground for inducting new members into their dark ranks. Or perhaps it's the other way around. Perhaps this massive satanic cult, the satanic ritual sites mentioned across Belgium, Holland, and the Netherlands, placed their own into these positions of power and flourished from there. There are more supposed satanic estates in Belgium itself. We visited a few of them. Certainly the Institute of Abraxas and Chateau d'Amroy aren't the only ones. These rituals are said to bring the members of satanic cults power, fame, and riches. These kinds of lures are exactly the type that would lure those seeking power in Europe and world governments in. Such a thing could lure anyone, even if they aren't willing to do what's asked of them. Apparently, one such man exists who saw the inner workings of the cult and said no. His name was Ronald Bernard, a Dutch banker. He's gone on interviews, he was a whistleblower, and he claimed that the world's elite did participate in these satanic rituals, those that involved the abuse of children and torture. But how would he know this? Well, Ronald Bernard was one of the men they asked to attend, and he did, but he found that he couldn't stomach what these cultists were doing behind closed doors.
This is pertinent. All this made me believe.
You see, Bernard was a major player at the highest levels of finance, and turned whistleblower for the evil elite after seeing the truth of what they did. He gave information on what the world of the elite did, what he was asked to do, and who they really were, as well as how long this had been occurring for. Ronald Bernard said that he played at a high level for 5 years, but it didn't happen overnight. He had to earn his place amongst the ranks of the world's highest level power brokers. Interestingly, comments made by Regina Louf mirror this admission. She stated in her interview with Panorama that to be introduced into the ring, you had to be asked to join and slowly brought into the fold. She stated that men were started off with girls aged 16 to 17, and that as they were pulled further into the ranks, the ages got even younger as you moved up. And how did Bernard earn his place in the ring? He said that in the financial world, he saw the truth as it really was, instead of only a small portion, because he could connect the dots of information and complete the pictures himself. Because of this unique position, he learned all of the actual truth, as he called it. When asked in what regard, he said that his clients gave him glimpses into how the world worked. He stated that in hindsight, he didn't know everything, but he did know a lot because his clients were banks who didn't want blood on their hands and needed someone to cover their trail. Within those banks, he said there were always several people who knew damn well what was going on. He said that on average, 1% of a bank knew the truth regarding the happenings within the world because they were involved with the flow of money. He stated that he worked with governments, multinationals, secret services, as well as terrorist organizations. He stated that you get all the groups involved with the big money as clients. After this happens, he says you start to see the connections. In other words, everyone knows a little piece of everything, but only those at the very top know the whole story. But because Bernard was in the middle of it all, he saw and knew everything and how it related to everyone involved. He saw where the money was coming from and where it went, and continued to gain information. And through that, he gained the complete view of everything that was happening in the world. In his position, he said he had to serve and keep everyone happy, everyone in every group, including the terrorist organizations. He later on stated that the secret services of countries were thought of as a body meant to protect the people, their country, etc. But in truth, he stated that these were the criminal organizations hiding behind a mask. But what did he mean by that? He was talking about the fact that these secret services are the ones financing and creating wars, much like the CIA-funded Iran-Contra scandal back in the 1980s. He was talking about the fact that these high-level organizations were the ones creating all the misery in the world. Secret services, he said, would stop at nothing. They needed nothing, but they also had their own flows of money. He said that they were trading in drugs and weapons, as well as in people, and that all that money had to go somewhere. Everything in this world has to be financed. He said that every government in the world was engaging in this activity, everywhere, no matter how clean and high-standing the country looked. He said the entire world as we know is only an illusion that we all collectively believe in. He went with all of it for a time, but then all of those horrible things began to eat at him. Bernard had seen the true horrors because of his complacency. In the interview, the host asked Bernard to tell her the worst thing he had seen, the tipping point that made him decide to speak out. In response, Bernard stated, "That was the beginning of the end. You get so deep in these circles. You sign a lifetime contract, not with blood or anything, to never disclose the names of companies, organizations, or people. I think that's why I'm still alive." To put it carefully, most of these people followed a not very mainstream religion. So you have Catholics, Protestants, all sorts of religions. These people, most of them, were Luciferians. And then you can say, religion is a fairy tale. God doesn't exist, and none of that is real. Well, for these people, it is true and reality, and they serve something immaterial, what they call Lucifer. But then at some point, I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad. That was the breaking point. As he begins, Bernard can barely speak. He looks and sounds as if he's beginning to start sobbing, doing his best to hold himself together. As he holds back tears, his voice breaking, he states, "Children." The interviewer is taken aback, unable to believe it. She asks if he was truly invited to do such a thing, and he confirms yes, he was asked, and he couldn't do it. Bernard had been asked to participate in child sacrifice to Satan, and that was his breaking point. Horrors such as this were described by the witnesses of the True case, and by independent fact-finders. It could be that what Bernard had been swept up in was a small part of the True ring all along. But Bernard had more to share. After regaining his composure, Bernard continues. He states that this hasn't only been going on for the past few years. He says that the practice of sacrificing children goes back thousands of years, and that after studying theology in the Bible, he found references to those practices occurring within the Israelites. Indeed, there are several references in the Judeo-Christian texts which mention this, specifically in Leviticus and 2 Kings. They discuss the sacrifice of infants and young children to a deity called Moloch by burning a child alive. Knowing these sacrifices happened made him believe in what these organizations were doing, because he realized there was more to life than meets the eye. If it was happening then, it could be happening now. Bernard said that in his studies of theology, he discovered a document that he believed made sense of what was happening in the world. But how could Bernard talk about all this and get away with it? I would assume that he would have been... Ronald Bernard said he was allowed to leave, but it wasn't a pleasant goodbye. In his exit from the ring, he was subjected to torture to ensure that he never said anything about what he knew. He said that certain types of torture were inflicted to ensure his silence, almost as a method of mind control. Yet Ronald Bernard revealed all this and seemingly managed to get away with it. Ronald Bernard wasn't specifically talking about the True scandal, but as a Dutch banker, he certainly had to have knowledge about it. Many claim that Ronald wasn't only talking about satanic bankers, but a much larger organization, one that's also been linked to the Chateau de Amoureux. Many believe that Bernard was silenced for speaking out about the Illuminati. Because of the similarity in their rituals, and because the Illuminati is tied to hunting parties and the mass programming of the world through the elite, allegedly, Chateau de Amoureux is thought to be one of the Illuminati's ritual grounds. One of their rituals is said to be known as Eyes Wide Shut, with a movie by the same name being created as a way to wake up the populace to its existence. Stanley Kubrick was the director of that celebrated film, and it was released shortly before his death, but not before the movie was altered, as some conspiracy theorists claim. Some theorists say that Eyes Wide Shut was a specific nod to the satanic practices of the Illuminati, almost like a warning from Kubrick. It's thought that Stanley tried to reveal what he knew of this dark ritual, but after 30 minutes of footage was removed by the studio, and his strange death before its release, we may never know the truth. This ritual, besides sacrifice, is said to involve and is taped as potential blackmail to ensure it's kept a secret. The Illuminati is also said to practice a strange form of mind control that's meant to keep its members from telling the truth, eerily echoing what Ronald Bernard had to say in his interviews about being tortured during his exit to make him silent. These rumors were allegedly proven to be a reality after the Mark True scandal came to light and confirmed that evil roamed the halls of this Gothic structure. The True scandal also proved that these elites would go to great lengths to protect themselves, and the deaths of those 20 witnesses sealed the fate of the case. Similarly, Ronald Bernard faced a strange and suspicious demise, a seemingly healthy man who suddenly died after claiming he was being followed. Because of these murders, it's clear that this group, be it the Illuminati, Abraxas, or both, will take any measures to protect themselves and their evil cabal. As if to prove that this group has a much farther reach than just the streets of Belgium, people claim that George H.W. Bush was a member of this shadowy power structure. At the 1988 Republican National Convention, George H.W. Bush accepted the nomination for president.
Okay, Herbert Walker Bush. So there's Barbara Bush's father was involved in all of this. So this
while doing so, he referenced something odd. At the National Convention, then again at his inauguration speech, he references
well,
1,000 points of...
He was involved in all of this. Let me rephrase. He's been the Skull and Bones, but a lot of the Bush family have been involved in that. But it goes more back to Herbert Walker than the Bush family, who are like kinetic.
Light. I've spoken of 1,000 points of light of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work
But see, again, the influence of the mother, through the mother's line.
hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in.
Then again, later in another speech, he mentions it a second time.
I'm a man who sees life in terms of missions, missions defined, and missions completed. I will keep America moving forward for an endless, enduring dream and 1,000 points of light. This is my mission.
So 1,000 points of light. That needs investigation.
And I will complete it.
He also created the Points of Light Foundation, an organization that aimed to promote non-governmental solutions to social issues. He later mentioned it again, stating, "I have spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good." Donald Trump even commented on the oddity of the 1,000 points of light phrase, saying, "Putting America first, we understand. 1,000 points of light, I never quite got that one. What the hell is that?"
Yeah. Okay. Trump, what the hell is that? America first, yeah.
Has anyone ever figured that one out? It was put out by a Republican, wasn't it?
And by the way, you know, all the rhetoric you see here, the 1,000 points of light. What the hell was that, by the way? 1,000 points of light. What did that mean? Does anyone know? 1,000 points of light. I never quite got that one. I'm trying to say, what the hell is that? Has anyone ever figured that one out? It was put out by a Republican, wasn't it?
But this is only one of the concerning references that Bush made. It seemed to Bush that the phrase New World Order was particularly important. In a later address, Bush stated the following: "We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order."
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. A new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace. An era in which the nations of the world, east and west, north and south, can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched for this elusive path to peace, while 1,000 wars raged across the span of human endeavor. And today, that new world is struggling to be born. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law.
The globalist agenda is a militant one. I mean, I have a globalist agenda, if you will, but it's a pacifist one. I mean, it's free trade, like my Global Expat Project. I mean, I love artisan products. I'm not going to change the world, but it is a step forward and an example.
Not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom and the rule of law. Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is a very real prospect of a new world order. In the words of Winston Churchill, a world order in which the principles of justice and fair play protect the weak against
a new world order. Churchill. That's interesting. Jenny Churchill's Cobham Hall. You can look at my videos on Cobham Hall.
Strong. That, of course, sounds like a good thing to most Americans. However, its true meaning could be something quite different and far more volatile. As for the 1,000 points of light, some researchers have seemed to decode the reference. It's been said that inside the Mothers of Darkness castle, the Chateau d'Amoroy, a special ceremony room exists that is reserved for the highest levels of the elite's rituals. In Fritz Springmeier's book, Bloodlines of the Illuminati, he cites the Chateau d'Amoroy as a place that he was told this happens at. According to him, the cathedral of the building allegedly hosts a large domed ceiling containing 1,000 points of light. Could these be the 1,000 points of light that Bush was referencing? And could his New World Order be a reference to the Illuminati and world domination? A man named Stephen Dolan's allegedly has insight. In regards to the references made by George H.W. Bush, Dolan said that he had spoken to a woman in Baltimore who claimed, then proved, to be Bush's campaign manager. She said that she was there the night Bush made the speech at the Republican National Convention. When she approached Bush after the speech, she said, "I want to be a part of that 1,000 points of light." In response, according to her, Bush grabbed her by the shoulder, his face becoming severe. He then told her, "I have no control over that." Could Bush have visited the chateau, this castle with its domed ceiling?
I have no control over that. I want to be a part of this 1,000 points of light. I have no control over that. What's that all about?
And 1,000 points of light. Could he, along with other members of his family, have gone there to help achieve their status? Some claim that Bush and his family have been involved in the Illuminati for many years, as 4 generations of the family have attended secret societies such as Yale's Skull and Bones and Bohemian Grove. Some even claim that the Bush twins, Jenna and Barbara, were inducted as 2 of the witches of Chateau d'Amoroy. But the Bush family isn't the only high-status name involved. Other names are mentioned in these documents and books, such as the Rothschilds, the royal family of England, and members of the Bilderberg Group. Many of these names continue to pop up in Illuminati conspiracy theories across the world. And even more concerning, similar themes continue to appear. In Bohemian Grove, like we've talked about before, a mock human sacrifice is said to play out. And we've talked about Bohemian Grove before, you know, Sanguine's connections to Freemasons and the Illuminati. But there's so many coincidences in this whole thing. One such coincidence was the fact that Marc Dutroux was not the only serial killer operating in the area of southern Belgium at the time of his arrest. Michael Fourniret was a French serial killer who confessed to the murder of 12 people, nearly all women and girls, ages ranging from 9 years old to 30. He, like Marc Dutroux, had murdered young girls. Some of the bodies of his victims have never been found, but Fourniret was known to operate in both France and Belgium from 1987 to 2003, a nearly identical time span to Dutroux. In fact, one of Fourniret's victims was thought to have been abducted by Dutroux instead, a 12-year-old girl named Elizabeth Brichet. But these weren't the only similarities. After a robbery turned murder, Fourniret purchased the Chateau de Sautou, where he buried 2 of his confirmed murder victims. This castle, only just on the other side of the Belgian border into France, lies only 30 minutes away from the Chateau d'Amoroy. We actually visited the Chateau de Sautou. Let's take a look.
Alright guys, so I'm going to be wearing sunglasses in today's episode because, as you can see, I've developed an insanely terrible eye infection over the last day on the place comes up a lot with different symbolism. The name, some people claim so too, almost represents Satan. If you're looking at the Pharaoh's alphabet, I forget the terminology for that. But yeah, this is some weird spooky shit. We're like way in the back roads right now in France, trying to get to the bottom of this story. It's disturbing shit because right now we're about 30 minutes away from the Chateau d'Amoroy, which is the main crown jewel of this portion of the video, and that's where all these rituals are taking place. So I find it really hard to believe that in the same time period that Marc Dutroux, the infamous pedophile murderer, same time that he's in Belgium, in a town that's less than an hour from here, he's running this massive ring that's across Europe. I find it weird that there would be a serial killer operating. What is that? Bird. That there would be a serial killer operating 30 minutes from the castle where these rituals are supposedly taking place, where children are murdered. That was a like, and that there'd be no connection. Definitely got horror movie vibes out here. Like, I feel like this is like the French Texas Chainsaw Massacre area. Especially, I feel like you see those trees online. It's those types of trees where it's pitch black in the middle of it. I've never seen those in person.
No bark on them either.
And my eyes killing me.
Okay, so it's...
In addition, numerous castles are mentioned in the Belgian X-Files on the Dutroux case. If it's more than an odd coincidence, how many castles today are used to bury the bodies of children subjected to pure horror? Was Fourneret part of this horrific cult as well? And how many victims did he bring to its masters? Meanwhile, the Salvés, the people who supposedly own the Chateau d'Ameroy, are quiet on this entire subject. They don't feed into the rumors, nor do they dispel them. The Salvés continue to dodge questions, avoid the public eye, and hide their involvement in any occult activity. It would seem that a simple solution to these rumors would be to allow National Geographic inside of the castle, or at least publicly reveal pictures of the interior. Yet the family allows these rumors to continue, rumors that haunt the locals. The rumors are as dark as they could possibly be, with some even pointing to a so-called satanic triangle of sorts, connecting 3 castles in the area together, and stating that children who disappear from all over Europe end up there. The practice of sacrificing, and especially of sacrificing children, goes back thousands of years, and is rooted in the history of numerous cultures. But why allow such rumors to continue to breathe life? Could it be that the family finds these rumors so laughable that they refuse to even acknowledge them? Clearly, someone did, as 20 of the Dutroux witnesses, and Ronald Bernard, paid the price for trying to speak out. Regina Louf, the most famous witness of the Dutroux case, believes she's only alive because she knows so much. She believes that if she were to be silenced for what she said, it would mean that all of her words had merit, and that people would have to believe her. Instead, she was painted as a lunatic by the media, but many still believe her stories, including me. The stories of her accounts, as well as the accounts of many satanic ritual victims, all match up. Around the world, other alleged satanic rings are rife with witnesses who say they attended rituals where children were sacrificed, and where mind control through ritual and torture was commonplace. Human hunting has also been well documented, even in media, with the series Thieves of the Wood depicting the aristocracy hunting and murdering the peasants they rule over. Strangely enough, the series is Belgian, set in 18th century Flanders. Could it be another nod to the Illuminati, brazenly carrying out evil and unspeakable acts on those they view as peasants? The name even causes one to wonder. Could the Thieves of the Wood be the child kidnappers prowling Europe and hiding their victims in the Ardennes? Signs and symbols of these horrific practices are everywhere, yet the information has been suppressed time and time again. Whether through cover-up, suppression of evidence, scrubbing it from the
European history is filled with
internet, or murder
and all this vampire stuff. There's all very, very dark.
Of witnesses, the world's elite have done their best to make sure no one knows anything about the evil magic practiced behind the walls of Chateau d'Ameroy. In 2013, a Russian blog called Zamki Mira uploaded pictures of the property of Chateau d'Ameroy. The blog talked about having watched movies like Eyes Wide Shut and afterwards wanting to visit one of the most scandalous places in Europe. They acknowledged the rumors of the castle, but state that the Dutroux merely benefited from the country's existing corruption and incompetence. They decided to go to the castle themselves to see if the rumors were true. All they wanted to do was look at the fence, so they claimed, but when they arrived, though there were no trespassing signs, they discovered that the gate was open. Heading into the castle is a checkpoint, and when they saw the gate was open, they simply went inside. According to them, they saw no state-of-the-art security system, no barbed wire, no tripwires, or anything like that. They wandered the property freely, even taking pictures of horses and donkeys and pastures. Approaching the castle itself, they said they encountered 2 children driving toy cars. They were 2 girls around the age of 6. The girls followed the visitors to the entrance and ran to a tall middle-aged man and told him they had guests. The man looked horrified that strangers had wandered onto his property. The blog states that this is because since the rumors went public, people have been arriving at the chateau and offering to sell their souls to the devil. However, according to them, everything seemed normal about the place, and the tourists left as freely as they entered, even posting their photos online for all to see. The castle had seemed uninhabited to the tourists on their approach, peaceful and picturesque. The only oddity about the post is that no name is ever mentioned, nor is a picture of anyone's face clearly posted. There are no pictures of the children or the man they met. They don't even mention if the adult was a Salvé, nor if the 2 girls were their children. Regina Louf stated something in her interview with Panorama that strikes as all the more heartbreaking. Part of her training was to make everything appear as if it was normal. She would go to school with the mask of an average girl on. Then when she went home, she would take it off and become the victim of a horrible cult. She was well trained, she said, never giving the idea that anything was abnormal. All had to appear calm on the surface so that the darkness could boil beneath. Children go missing every day. It's a horrific truth of our world and the greatest fear of every parent alive. Most people don't want to consider what happens to the innocents among us who vanish without a trace. But someone knows, especially the ones behind it. How could rumors of things as dark as child sacrifice have merely come from a family who valued their privacy? And how could stories upon stories mount of a coven of satanic witches unless someone somewhere saw it for themselves? The Chateau d'Ameroy is a den of darkness, surrounded by secrets and horrors. A captivating enigma, it earns this reputation for all the wrong reasons. The theories and beliefs of the castle and its inhabitants may sound too terrible to be true, but if history is any teacher, these nightmarish events could be occurring behind the building's powerful walls. Worse, hunters of children could be wandering its woods, taking part in the most sickening entertainment imaginable. Thoughts continue to drift back to the cult of Abraxas and their high priestess requesting children for a specific ritual. Thoughts then drift to the police who counted themselves among their ranks. Then they wander to the mine complex. And there's just so much more. So what other secrets does the Chateau d'Ameroy hold? But now, we couldn't end this without a visit ourselves to the Chateau d'Ameroy. So let's cut to August 2024, when Connor and I entered the country of Belgium to go visit the Mothers of Darkness Castle, to try to track down the source of these conspiracies, and look evil straight in the eyes.
So they try and go there.
Really is unbelievably isolated. And like, I wonder if they see this whole property is fenced. Barbed wire on top.
Tripwires?
Yeah, there's apparently tripwires out here. And then all these structures. To me, these look like hunting. I don't know what they are. I guess I'll turn around.
I think they have tags on them. What tags on them?
Oh yeah, it's got animals on it. So that is hunting. I'm gonna turn around at the next turnaround. Oh my god, I can barely go through my eye.
You can't see it.
If you can see up there, private property. Do you see anything down that road?
There's trees.
So this is all the Chateau d'Ameroy property right here. Every single access point to this place is heavily, I wouldn't say heavily guarded, because, I mean, really, if you were dedicated, you could get in there pretty easily, I would say. I wonder why no one's ever done that.
Because nobody's dedicated to get murdered by the Illuminati.
Or maybe nobody survived to tell the tale. It is crazy, though. Like, for just some random old Belgian castle that apparently nothing's ever happened happened at in the middle of nowhere. You can't even see the castle. It's like kind of insane how there's like literally no place to even look at the damn castle.
I mean, pretty much all the other chateaus all over Europe. I mean, it's like a tourist thing that people do. And people are really open about it. People want you to come see the beauty of these places. But this one's, for some reason, very blocked off from society. No pictures. I mean, even like big news channels have reached out trying to look inside the place, and they get turned down.
You know what it really reminds me of? Last month we were at Bohemian
Yeah, as I
Grove.
said, beginning, most chateaus cost so much that they, for tourist attractions.
This reminds me a fucking lot of Bohemian Grove. Like all the security just deep in the woods. But we're gonna find a place to pull over so we can do some paranormal investigating. We are not gonna break in or try to break the law here. We value our lives and our safety, but we're gonna get about as close as you can get to conduct a paranormal investigation.
So they really, they try and go around and stuff. And then they I don't know, they're hearing some voices.
What should we do fast and promptly?
Have We do want to.
Hothouse?
I mean, these are like supposedly ghosts or something speaking to them. I mean, I'm not really positive. You know, somebody who's better equipped to study that. I mean, I definitely believe that there's, just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So anyway, but see, we've got all sorts of different, we'll even go to their channel, but Torture Castle, Midnight Productions. There's just a lot of, here's another one on Marc Dutroux. I was contacted by the Mothers of Darkness, exposing the evil of Bohemian Grove. This he mentioned, this is apparently a satanic, the darkest place. So I guess this is with satanic actors. Huh, that looks like politicians. That's something also. But as I say, you know, there's all sorts of threads here. The untold story of Belanoff, the Mother of Darkness, the pedophile murderers, kids on the dark web. That's something that definitely, yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of, now it's gone into the web. In fact, Megan Kelly, some guy, O'Neill, she was interviewing him and that subject came up and she changed the subject. Survivors of satanic rituals speak out, Hollywood's dark underbelly, Trump bans corporate home buying and caps credit cards. Let's see. Oh, I snuck into Bohemian Grove. See, there's lots of satanic high wizard exposes the secrets of the satanic elites. And these are different channels. So it's not, you know, one could say, oh, well, it's just this really crazy dude. But, you know, there are, and these are not crazy wacko people. I mean, this is a very lucid person who has obviously done his research, because I know enough about Dutroux and a lot of what was going on in Belgium at that time. And I've heard about this, as I say, since the 90s. So I know enough about the subject to know that he's not lying. So yeah, it's just horrible, horrible, horrible. So, and you know, again, this has been going on for centuries. Queen Elizabeth, Victoria, see, putting women in positions of power doesn't necessarily make for a better world. And right now, for example, with the authority gap, that's Marianne Seigart. Her father was the author of The Lawful Rights of Mankind. I'm like, no. She says the authority gap, why women aren't taken seriously and what we can do about it. I'm like, well, if women were behaving more seriously, they would be taken more seriously. And here's kind of just, you know, the different precedents we've had. I mean, okay, Nixon's not in there, Ford's not in there, but these are the families, because Nixon, I mean, they were like, oh, we got to take, I personally think it's because Nixon was involved with the START talks and wanted de-escalation of war. And I think that's why they got rid of him. And Watergate was just a pretext. I mean, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein have gotten letters from me. If they're still alive, I want to see them in court. So, and then, you know, Ford came in, Jimmy Carter came in. I think they were just kind of door stoppers, if you want to call them, until everybody could reorganize. And then, and the Kennedy family, they've just been cashing in ever since they got to Washington with, see, the Robert F. Kennedy human rights, that's LGBT promoting under Kerry Kennedy. And that's why they didn't want Bobby in the White House. Now, I think Tim Mellon didn't want Bobby in the White House, and I think all of these warmongers and wealthy families didn't want Bobby in the White House. And I'm pretty sure Amaryllis Fox is a honeypot who married Bobby Kennedy's son and became the campaign manager to make sure that Bobby Kennedy didn't win. Because why? I mean, is she so, how shall I say it, despises the stay-at-home moms that she wouldn't give me the time of day? Or did she know about me supporting Bobby and make sure don't let anybody give that woman a voice? And was it intentional that I was, ignored, even though I'm writing blogs on the Kennedy Coalition website for Randy Hines of Las Vegas? So that, I think that was all intentional. Now, why aren't any of the podcaster journalists interested in, well, wait a second, were people working behind the scenes, the deep state, to make sure Bobby Kennedy didn't get in because they were afraid? I think that's what it is. So anyway, what I've been, I keep on trying to explain to everybody that, but we'll keep on going into this. Obviously, there are a lot of laws being broken. Oops. Here, whether it be the Mitch Snow stuff, where we got the Benton County, this is from the Deep State 31, the Mooney stuff that came up in the last presentation with the guy who lived in the room next door to me. When she started going on about the Moonies, I was like, I got somebody for you. I got a connection there. So wherever it might be, what we saw, these do the acts by shutting me up, by cover-ups. They are under the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt, better known as RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. I'll let y'all, these are in the slides. Anybody can read through these, but these are what we're looking at here. And I also want to finish up. So these are just, that's on the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and the Alien Enemy Act of 1798. That is being recent attempts, past administrations have attempted to use it for immigration enforcement. The courts have sometimes limited its application. Well, we're going to be seeing a rise on that. But then this brings us to the Nuremberg laws and Nuremberg trials, jurisprudences, and implications for propagandists. I hope everybody will look at my Deep State number 22 video on that stuff and how history is repeating itself, denial of rights in countries with restrictive laws throughout history, because these Nuremberg laws, that was just, par for the course. Everybody's been doing it. That's how they deal with this. So this was not, the whole Holocaust, the whole German thing, that was not an anomaly. It was just part of European history. And then here, denial of rights in countries with restrictive laws. So here, this continues on. What kind of rights are they being denied? Where do they attack it? Property and land ownership, political and civil rights, right to naturalization, citizenship, economic and labor rights, and public charge barrier, freedom of movement and protection from detention. We are deja vu. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're seeing. And this is what we are seeing time and time again. So in the next videos, I'll be delving further into, the occult, lifestyle of the rich and famous, the child trafficking, human trafficking, what does that entail? Are there gray areas? Is there stuff, well, this is amoral but not illegal, this is clearly, where is all of this going, and how it's been used and being used to gaslight everybody. So that's it for today. and I'll see you perhaps later today or tomorrow.